the meeting of the City of Palm Coast. It is Tuesday, December 6, 2016. It is 6:30 p.m. and we are at City Hall Community Wing. We can call to order our meeting, and let's join me in the pledge to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can call roll call, please.
Mayor Holland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nobile.
Here.
Councilmember Cuff.
Here.
Councilmember Clufus.
Here.
Councilmember Shibley.
Here.
Mayor, all members are present.
If we can have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We will now move to agenda item number 2, which is proclamations and presentations. I'm going to present this, so I would ask anyone from the Centennial Committee to please step forward. This is a proclamation. Whereas the residents of an area of St. Johns County began discussing creating a county of their own a few years after entering the 20th century, and in 1917, the Florida Senate and House approved legislation that paved the way for the creation of Flagler County out of portions of St. Johns and Volusia counties. Whereas then Florida Governor Sidney J. Katz signed the legislation on April 28, 1917, and whereas residents of the defined area voted overwhelmingly to approve the creation of Flagler County on June 11, 1917, and quickly went to work to establish a county government in accordance with the Constitution of the state of Florida, and whereas I. Moody, former chairman of the St. Johns County Commission, was instrumental in the creation of Flagler County, but declined to have the county named in his honor and recommended instead that it be named after Henry Flagler, the businessman and entrepreneur who opened Florida to the rest of the nation by bringing dependable rail transportation to the state. And whereas the citizens and all elected officials of Flagler County have worked tirelessly for the past century to maintain Flagler County as a desirable place to live and work, and agriculture and business and tourism and land development have remained with Flagler County since its first day as a county. And whereas ITT Corporation purchased 68,000 acres of land in Flagler County in 1969 to create the community of Palm Coast, which officially became a city on December 31st, 1999, and whereas the City of Palm Coast wishes to join with Flagler County to celebrate the many accomplishments of Flagler County in the past century and to look forward to our county's future as Flagler County celebrates its centennial as a county in 2017, now therefore be proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council of Palm Coast that the year 2017 will be a year of celebrating Flagler County's first century as a county, with the participation in the many annual events that occur in the City of Palm Coast and Flagler County, and that Saturday, April 29, 2017, be set aside as the Flagler County Centennial Celebration. The residents of Flagler County are invited to attend a celebration at the Flagler County Government Center with music, food, and fun for all ages that will include special historical reenactments of Flagler County's history and its future. Signed this day of December 2016 by Mayor Melissa Holland. Thank you.
Thank you. First thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank you for the people that you sent to us. The Flagler County, Palm Coast Historical Society has worked with us and done a fantastic job. It's really great. That and your county staff, Cindy Lane, who's here, and others have worked with me, and it's just been a wonderful cooperation. I've got a great committee, and We work together, and it's just really nice to be in charge of something that just everybody gets along and does a fine job. We're planning to want to involve everybody in Flagler County to make it fun, to make it not only historical and a lot of the history that went on, but make it fun for everyone. The main event will have food trucks out in front of the Government Services Building. We'll have a mile run walk for the kids. We will have classic cars out front. Also a kids zone on the side. We're working with the Police Athletic League to set up a kids zone on the west side of the Government Services Building. We're working with the Rotary Club of Flagler County. They're going to have their train out there and give free train rides to the kids. We're working with the schools to do, we've got some great talent in the schools to present choral groups. Also, they've got steel bands, jazz bands, a lot of that type of talent, really nice. We'll be able to play that in the atrium of the Government Services Building. On the third floor, we'll have a photo contest of pictures of Flagler County with cash prizes, a students section and an adults section, or an open section, not just adults. And just a lot of different events. Also, it's the 100th year for the Flagler County School Board as well. So we're going to reenact the first meetings, and the governor's been invited, indicated he will come, and of course, all of you are welcome to come and participate. It's just going to be, we have the Friends of Flagler County Library is bringing a woman who does interpretation of the three wives of Henry Flagler, which might be kind of interesting to find out what this guy was like. So it's going to be just a fun day. And then we're participating in every major event in Flagler County to just like your parades. We'll be there with a float. We'll hope next year we'll be at the Starlight Parade with a float. And also participate in the 4th of July. We're working with the City of Flagler Beach. We'll be part of the Cheer on the Pier. They've dedicated to the centennial. And we're also going to do a sand sculpture. The City of Flagler Beach has given us a spot on the in Veterans Park to do a sand sculpture. And we're working with Santori Fireworks to put 100 at the conclusion of the fireworks right up in the air. So just going to be a fun year.
Thank you. If I can ask everybody from the community to join us, the city council, for a photo.
What time is this coming off?
Pardon me?
What time is this?
It'll start at 9 a.m. and go till 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
That's the Saturday.
No. April 29th.
Okay.
April 29th. Long time.
Oh, here it comes. Okay.
We'll now move to agenda item number 3, which Mr. Reichman could read.
Madam Mayor?
Okay.
Want me to read the title?
Yes, please.
This is an ordinance of the City of Palm Coast
of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code. This ordinance amends the official zoning map for 28.6 more or less acres of certain real property generally located on the east side of Laramie Drive, about 1/2 mile north of Matanzas Wood Parkway, and being more particularly described in the attached Exhibit A and Exhibit B. We're rezoning this from PUD or Plan Unit Development pursuant to a 2005 Unified Land Development Code to Master Plan Development District, or MPD zoning district. This ordinance provides for conflict for severability and provides for an effective date. Madam Mayor and Council, this is a quasi-judicial matter. For ease and convenience and to let the public know, what we do at the beginning of these hearings is always announce if there have been any communications. We call them ex parte communications. These need to be disclosed so that everyone can have confidence that the decisions that we made tonight will be based upon what you hear tonight, based upon the evidence in the record. And I can tell you that the city has received 2 documents, and the City Council has received two documents, which they've all seen. These are a matter that are part of the record and available for inspection. One document is the minutes of the PLDRB, which is the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Palm Coast. And the other is an email document from a property owner in your community, Mr. Joshi, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name, but that would be the other document. All council members have seen those documents. However, Madam Mayor, at this time, it would be appropriate for each council member and for yourself, if you have had additional ex parte communications, to disclose those at this time.
Any member of the council wishes or needs to disclose any type of communication in regards to this issue?
I've discussed the application briefly with Katie Reichman from the City Attorney's Office.
And I have discussed the issue with Mr. Landon after reading the PLDRB minutes.
If there's none, actually, we've disclosed a few. I'm going to now turn it over to Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, this is actually a fairly unusual rezoning case because it is tied into the efforts the city has been working on for quite some time. Really, there's 3 things in the Matanzas Woods area, or the L section, we've been working on. One of them is trying to maintain the golf course in a halfway decent condition. This project has nothing to do with the golf course, so that issue is totally a separate issue. This is not adjacent to or in any way associated with the abandoned golf course. The other 2 issues, first would start off with is trying to convert the numerous, about half a dozen parcels in the L section that are zoned for multifamily development. This happened to be an area many years ago. I guess some planners decided it was good to have some multifamily in the city, and they designated, as part of our original zoning map, multifamily in the L section. And if you look on the screen, the map, everything that's circled in black is actually multifamily in a single-family residential neighborhood. There has been one, and that is the one that is circled in blue, that City Council recently rezoned to single-family. In talking to the neighbors, we've made a commitment to try to get the other multifamily areas rezoned to single-family, and that has been one of our goals. You're going to see others come forth as we've been working with property owners who have agreed to move forward with that. This particular project is one of those that is currently has a plan unit development, which is a multifamily plan unit development, so it has entitlements for multifamily at this time. The second thing that we have been working on in this area is stormwater, flooding issues. This map here comes from an engineer modeling study. Everything you see in blue, they're projecting could be underwater during heavy rains. That actually is obviously unacceptable. What happens here is there is a canal that runs from south of here, from the B section, Bird of Paradise area. It crosses Matanzas Woods Parkway and then runs on the east side of the L section along I-95. And then it turns to the west and goes under US 1. If we have heavy rains at the US 1 area, it starts backing up. And if there's more rain that comes down that canal, then it can get under US 1 and into the natural system. It starts backing up in the canals, and from the canals into our ditches, and the ditches backs up into the swells, and then the swells, it starts backing up into yards.
How did this fare during Hurricane Matthew?
Hurricane Matthew was not a major rain event, so the whole community fared very well. But this particular drainage section, when we got the 16 inches and a few others, this area was really scary. And the B section just south of this, in the Bird of Paradise area, actually is even worse as far as some of the backups. So it's during those events. So one of the goals, and our stormwater engineers have been working on in this section and also in the Bird of Paradise section, is to make some improvements. What you see here, the red triangles, those are actual what we call tributaries, or major ditches that we have gone in recently and redug and added capacity. Our plan is also to add stormwater storage capacity. And the 11 acres that the city owns is part of the plan to have that dug out so that the canal backs up into a planned lake. Bird of Paradise is very similar to that versus into the neighborhood. So this particular development helps accomplish that goal. It doesn't totally solve our stormwater problem, but it is a good step in the right direction. So this development agreement that is being presented to you tonight addresses both converting the multifamily into single family and also helping with some of the stormwater issues that we have in this neighborhood.
Jim, what you just described, if you could, or staff at one time, could you show more of a comprehensive map showing Bird of Paradise, just so for the public to see how those outflows sort of connect with this property?
We don't have it part of the presentation. The best way, let me try to do this.
Okay.
This is the canal we've been talking about that kind of runs and down here, and then it goes south. And so Bird of Paradise, if you will, would be south of this, with this being Matanzas Woods Parkway at this location. It then continues on and then goes under US 1 at approximately this location, and that's where the backup is. So it is a very large drainage area that we are trying to add stormwater capacity as one of the goals that we've had as a result of those engineering studies.
Are those areas indicated in blue as 100-year floodplains? Are those from FEMA or?
They're actually from our own modeling, where we, our stormwater engineers, take our system that was designed way back when Palm Coast was originally built by ITT, and they have ways of taking all the topography and predicting that when there's so much water goes down that canal, how much of it will start backing up, and then where will it go based on the topography. This isn't the only neighborhood. We have a number of these that we've been working on throughout the community. This is just one of the different sections. So with that introduction, which is a little unusual for a zoning case, but I think it's good background for City Council and the neighbors, Bill is going to actually, I think with Ray's going to contribute. They're going to do a little tag team, talk about the details of this particular zoning case. So Bill, if you'll take it from here to start giving additional details.
Good evening. I'm Bill Hoover, Senior Planner with the Planning Division.
Good evening.
The site's 28.60 acres, and it's located on the east side of Laramie Drive, about a half-mile north of Matanzas Woods Parkway, and it's the two parcels that are inside the green boundaries. And it's proposed to be rezoned from PUD to MPD, and the MPD stands for Master Plan Development. And all the rezonings in the city are governed by this very important document called the Future Land Use Map. designates all this area in yellow, and you can see the canals are excluded since they're in green, blue. And the residential area allows single-family and/or multifamily projects at densities between 2 units an acre and 7 units an acre. And this project has a maximum density of 3.78 units per acre. It's currently designated PUD, and that's for 102 townhouses and 40 condominiums. And it's proposed for MPD or master plan development for up to 108 single-family homes. And this is their conceptual layout. It's called the MPD Master Plan, and it's proposed for a single-family community, gated more than likely. And you can see the green shaded area at the bottom of the screen. That would be the main entrance. And as you come in, you can see a circular roadway system with that goes around a central lake. And in the green shaded area, you would also have a clubhouse and pool area. At the top of the screen, you can see the city's proposed 11-acre lake. And to the west side of the screen, you'll see a yellow area. That's a planned drainage area. And on the right-hand side of the screen, that's a proposed, there's sort of a canal there right now, but it's very shallow. So that's intended to be widened.
Okay, I'm Ray Tyner, Planning Manager, Planning Division of the Community Development Department. What I want to do in the proposed development agreement, there's a lot of language on land swaps, and I just want to be able to highlight it visually. It'll probably clear, hopefully, maybe some questions up. Currently, the City of Palm Coast owns approximately 1.97 acres of this piece of property here, and that was commonly, I guess, referred to as the house on the hill or the haunted house. That property was donated to the City of Palm Coast. We didn't pay anything for that piece of property, but was rather donated, and that is part of this of the development. So, working with the applicant, we were working on a land swap to make the project work, to try to make it a win-win situation for not only the applicant, but also for the community in the City of Palm Coast. So for the 1.97 acres swap, what the applicant, what was agreed upon was that they would donate this property here, which is approximately 1 or 2.51 acres. And additionally, to donate fee simple this property here, which is 0.65 acres. And what Mr. Landon, with his introduction, was talking about stormwater facilities and the importance of their drainage system. This area here is an existing drainage facility that has no city easement on it, and it's an important aspect to the community that helps drain some of the water into the ditches, into the water body. Same thing with this side. There's an existing smaller drainage ditch feature that would also get improved. This would also allow more capacity. The developer is obligated to dig this area out for potentially a very passive canoe launch facility that will eventually connect to the lake area. This area here is not part of the applicant's property. This is existing land that is 11 acres owned by the City of Palm Coast, what Mr. Landon was talking about during his introduction. This is the area that would be obligated to be dug out. The applicant will dig to provide more storage capacity for the City of Palm Coast and for the Matanzas neighborhood.
Ray, so the applicant would actually be doing the stormwater for us. What would that cost if we had to do it?
Well, I can tell you, the permitting alone was probably estimated to about $80,000. And as far as the construction, you're talking, heavy equipment and digging out the soil and disposing of the soil. I couldn't guess, thousands of dollars.
It really would depend on if there was use for the soil. And if we do it, we're going to have to go out to bid, et cetera. If the private sector does it, they're going to trade it for other things usually. So we don't really know what the price is, but very likely it's six figures. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The other thing, Ray, you said about 85. The latest wetland study that we got, it's actually closer to 150,000. Okay. 85 was our original estimate, but since they've done more studies out there, they're expecting it to be closer to $135,000 to $150,000 for the wetland mitigation bank that you would have to purchase credits out of.
And that's, the applicant's paying that?
Well, the next slide we'll get into.
I got one question back on this previous slide. So the launch facilities and that entranceway and all that, that's going to be under city maintenance?
The green area would be not.
Not the green area, the blue on
Yes,
the...
that would be city ownership, would be
Okay.
the idea, so that anybody in the neighborhood could launch a kayak or.
So that's going to be, because when I heard gated, that road, is that road, because...
It's not, the launch area is outside of the gated area.
Okay.
Right, correct. And just to summarize again, the city has the 1.97 acre piece of property that we would transfer to the applicant, and they would deed over 3.16. So we're actually netting probably an acre and a quarter of net of property. And in addition, the applicant will pay $100,000 into an escrow fund for the environmental permitting and mitigation cost. And as I stipulated, they will excavate the canal on the east and on the west, or the north and the south side, fill and grade the kayak launch area. And for that, we will provide approximately $15,286,000 from the park impact fee if it's going to be utilized for a park. Another thing I wanted to mention is that for the canal, it's a stage phase project. So if you could go back to the last map, I just want to highlight this for a second. In order to have reasonable assurances that the applicant will make improvements to our stormwater system, for these lots adjacent to the water bodies, they would not be able to get their final plat to be able to sell and to build on those lots until portions of the stormwater facility is constructed. For example, 25% of this, if this is constructed as open water body, then they go ahead and final plat those lots and so on until the construction is completed. In addition, I do want to mention that the applicant is also going to build at one of the entrances a school bus stop for children that may live in the neighborhood, so there is a safe place for the children to wait for the bus stop. And additionally, they will be contributing to our citywide sidewalk fund of approximately, I guess we estimated about $35,000 into that fund as well. With that, Mr. Hoover will have some of the details on the application itself.
Some of the key site development requirements and what we do on rezoning, so we compare what the previous standards are compared to what's proposed. And for condos, you really don't have a minimum lot size or a minimum lot width. However, you do on the townhouses that are approved. Those have a 3,000 square foot minimum lot size, and they have to be at least 40 feet wide. The single-family homes that are proposed would be 6,000 square foot lots that are 50 foot wide. One of the next key comparisons are Maximum building heights for the townhouses and the single-family homes would be the same. The 40 condos that are approved there, those can go up to 50 feet, but that would go away because the single-family homes is capped at a height of 35 feet. One other thing that's changing is the density would drop from about 5 units an acre down to about 3.75 units per acre. The applicant's required to hold a neighborhood information meeting, and the process on this is they mail out notification letters to all neighbors within 300 feet of the subject property. And you get that list through the Flagler County Property Assessor's Office. They mailed the notice.
Can I just ask a question? How many people were there actually in that 300 feet?
There was 129 properties. The neighborhood information meeting was held on September 8th at 6:00 p.m. at Matanzas High School cafeteria. 21 persons attended. And an analysis for rezonings, there's 5 key paragraphs in the Land Development Code that govern these. And paragraph A states, the proposed development must not be in conflict with or contrary to the public interest. And staff found that the proposed MPD with SFR 1 lot standards would be compatible with the surrounding properties that have SFR 2, SFR 3, and DPX or duplex zoning. Paragraph B, the proposed development must be consistent with the provisions of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. And staff found it met all applicable portions of the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, including 2 key ones. The density needs to fall between 2 to 7 units per acre. And the second one is that when a project has 50 or more homes, it's required to have 2 access points. So you saw the second access would be next to the kayak launch. Paragraph C, the proposed development must not impose a significant financial liability or hardship for the city. And staff found the infrastructure needed for the project is already in place, except for a sewer force main that the applicant has agreed to extend to the site. And the applicant will also excavate this 11-acre lake at no cost to the city, which would improve flooding and stormwater management capacity for the area. Paragraph D, the proposed development must not create an unreasonable hazard, nuisance, or constitute a threat to the general health, welfare, or safety of the city inhabitants. And the proposed community at a maximum density of 3.78 units per acre would be in harmony with the surrounding single-family homes and duplex homes in staff's professional opinion. Paragraph E, the proposed development must comply with all other applicable local, state, and federal laws, statutes, ordinance, regulations, or codes. And in this case, the project will, as it goes through the development process, which takes a while, will have to comply with the city's land development code, the comprehensive plan, and all other requirements such as St. John's River Water Management District and stuff like that. Staff recommended approval to the planning board of this rezoning, which ultimately recommended approval by a 6-to-1 vote on November 16th to City Council to rezone 28.60 acres from PUD for multifamily uses to MPD for single-family uses for the Matanzas Land MPD application number 3112. And the applicant has a presentation that they would like to make.
Yeah, I would now ask the applicant to come forward and speak, please.
Ms. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jim Cullis. I'm a partner in Matanzas Land and also a local developer here. I want to thank the staff. We've worked on this really, I think, most of this year. They have, in my opinion, proceeded very cautiously and very thoroughly, and I appreciate their hard work and effort. There's been some questions raised about the process. I think they've done a good job tonight. Mr. Shimento is here if you have any questions about whether we met the code, but we did follow the letters of the law. To our understanding, we mailed the letters out to the people in the neighborhood. I held the meeting. We did have advertisements in the paper for the planning board meeting, I'm pretty sure, when we weren't really required to.
We, besides the planning board, which our land development code and the state statute does not require, we placed a legal ad for that as well as tonight's hearing. So neither one of those meetings are required to be advertised in the newspaper.
Yeah. So I think we had a meeting. I addressed the crowd. We did take their names and numbers and email addresses, and even after that, the ones who gave us an email address, I followed up and sent them my notes from the meetings, and I think we've made some adjustments to the plan based on that input, which I can talk a little bit about. I also gave everybody my card and encouraged them to communicate with me if they had any issues. So we tried hard to meet the letter of law and go through and have a good communications process. Again, there's misinformation out there. This doesn't have anything to do with the golf course, this project, and I don't have anything to do with the golf course land. So, nor do any of my partners. I hope the current owners do a good job and come up with a plan that meets the wishes of the neighbors, and time will tell whether that works out. I did think that, this is a classic infill site. This is a picture of the site plan that was approved as part of the PUD, and it had, again, this is kind of a square rectangle, and it does lead itself to a circular plan with a lake in the middle. Again, our plan looks a little bit like this in terms of the circulation, but I did think that townhomes and condos were out of keeping with what's in this neighborhood. So our plan really is to build patio homes. This is the artist rendering. I think it's going to be a great community. It's kind of what we do. We build master plan communities. These lots that are platted here are 50-foot lots. In Grand Haven, this is probably 25% of our housing product there. And we have 6 different communities within Grand Haven that have this exact size home sites. It does feature a lot of water. I think, we'll go to the next slide. This is one rendering of what a canoe and kayak park can be. That'll be a whole process to itself, what the city wants there. We have committed to do the grading on that and bring the road down to make the connection. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of public input. We did in our neighborhood meeting have discussions about having a park on this site, and I'd say it was pretty mixed. Some of the neighbors would want to park on the site, and some of the neighbors don't want to park. So I did not have a clear conclusion from our neighborhood meeting. What was clear to me in the neighborhood meeting is that the neighbors are concerned about the quality of the housing in here, and they're also concerned about what kind of transient rentals do to the value of housing. I have committed to putting in the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that we'll have here in the ARB guidelines, rental restrictions that are similar to what we have at Grand Haven. What we have at Grand Haven is you can't rent your home any less than a month at a time, any more than 3 times a year. So that keeps out any kind of transient rentals, and I've committed to making that condition in our approval here, if we have obtained it. Next. This is the slide that shows the land. I think you've seen this before. I think the trade, next slide, Mr. Tyner, Mr. Hoover covered that trade pretty well. We're giving you more land than you're giving us. We're committing to dig the lake, and we're committing to dig the canal down for the canoe and kayak park. So I do think this is a series of neighborhoods that we have in Grand Haven that give you a similar sense of the type of homes that get built on 50-foot lots. Go to the next slide. This Heritage Oaks, again, you know, this neighborhood was built in the 04, 05. The homes in this neighborhood probably still in the 300,000, 350, 400,000 range. So they're not inexpensive homes. What it is a lifestyle choice for people who don't want to maintain their yards. Our retired folks tend to have downsized from a bigger home in the north, and they tend to travel a lot. So when they travel, they don't, you know, they want to know that someone's going to take care of their yards. They don't want to take care of a yard, so we don't have big lots and big yards. We have a master association that maintains the yards for them, so when they get back, it looks like it looked when they left. So we have a number of slides here that if you go through Grand Haven, I'm happy. Lakeside East and West were our very first patio home communities in Grand Haven, and as you go farther south, I think we built Village Oaks was really probably one of our more popular early neighborhoods we built in the 2000s. There's Nature Trail involved in Wild Oaks. We do try to do connectivity here. We'll have sidewalks on one side of the road. This just gives you a streetscape of what it looks like in Wild Oaks, or in Village Oaks. Next, again, I think this is still Village Oaks. It really was very popular. This is back up to the north end. You know, we've done our homework. I mean, we did do a traffic study. The neighbors were concerned about the extra traffic. Sans Lassiter is here tonight if you have any questions for him, but we've submitted that. Traffic analysis, we'll call it. To my knowledge, it wasn't required at this level. It will be required. A formal traffic study will be required at preliminary plat, and we'll do that study for you. But that study is in your package, and basically what it shows is it's kind of a wash the way it works over what was previously approved. It's 3 or 4 or 5 less traffic units, trips during peak hour, and it's 20 or 30 more over the course of the whole day. And so we did do that study. We also did an environmental assessment that was in the city standard, and that environmental assessment has been given to the city's environmental staff person. Found 2 gopher tortoise holes on it. They may have a gopher tortoise in it, may not. They did not find any endangered species, flora, fauna. You know, it is a wooded site that was historically graded, and when they dug the area behind. So, I mean, I do think it's appropriate for a master plan community of an infill. We're excited about this neighborhood. I like the area. I think we're going to build a very nice community, and you know, I hope I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, at this time, does anyone, any council member have questions either for our staff or the applicant?
I actually do. I know you have 2 exits, and I know people are concerned about the traffic. Do both entries and exits go to the same street?
Yes, they do.
They do.
If you look at the site, there is no other way to leave the site. You either canoe out or you go out Laramie. So there's the main entrance, which is you know, has a median, and then there's an entrance that comes out, an emergency access entrance off the very south end that goes through the canoe and connects to the canoe and kayak park.
And that feeds right into Matanzas,
Yes, sir.
Laramie.
Right. I mean, you can go either way.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can go to
right.
Laramie, you can either go out towards, you can go north on Laramie, or you can go south to Matanzas Boulevard.
So, Mr. Collis, can you go back to the actual, go back to the screen, the actual rendering, not this. I have a question about, I read in our packet about model homes and what will be built out there first. So will all the infrastructure be put in place as far as the roadways simultaneously? Are you looking to phase that out?
Well, we have this requirement to plat as we complete the stormwater improvements. So what we envision, actually John Hall is here tonight, is one of the contractors I'm talking to about digging the lake for us and doing the community. But I think what's logical is that we would clear the site, do the excavation of the lakes, start the main canal, and I'm guessing that 11-acre lake might take a year, year and a half. So we would build the main entrance, build the amenity probably in the first phase, and then go north, which has a number of lots that aren't restricted in the holdback that we negotiated with the city.
And where would that school bus stop site go? Do
We
know?
would put it in the Canoe and Kayak Park as the proposal, or we would find another suitable location.
Over there.
When we go to preliminary plat, we'll review that with the staff.
And Mr. Laster, could you come up for a second, please? State your name for the record.
Sure. Stanislaw Lasser, Lasser Transportation Group, 1450 West Granada, Ormond Beach.
Okay. And I know you have an extensive history with transportation and traffic studies, so, and I read your packet, it was very comprehensive. If you just want to give a brief overview of the minimal impact and what your final report demonstrated.
Sure. While the current plan allows more units, those more units are multifamily. They actually generate on an individual basis a little bit less traffic than single family, more in the range of 6 to 7 trips per unit. So even though we're proposing fewer units overall, single family does generate higher traffic. So it ends up being almost a wash. I think the difference is like 3 trips in the peak hour, which is essentially in our business pretty close. Doesn't really represent any kind of difference. So because of the change in use to proposed change in use to single family, it will generate less per unit, and overall actually about the same. I don't consider 3 trips different to be a significant number. So about the same in the peak hours you would have had under the currently approved plan.
And you did as far as patterns, traffic patterns on sort of coming out of this road, were you seeing the majority of traffic patterns going one direction as opposed to the other?
It's going to head south. Most of it's going to head south. It's going to go down to Matanzas Woods Parkway. It's got a couple of opportunities there. It can head over to the interstate. Now we have a new interchange, and obviously it could head down Belterre as well, or even over to US 1. So it's got lots of opportunities to disperse after that point. We've checked the capacity on those roads. There's plenty of capacity to handle the project, so that's not an issue.
Okay. And going back to the question, this is for staff, about the 2 entrances and exits. Both of those obviously would go in concurrently at the same time. In other words, we're not just going to put one in as it's developed. Both would be required because of emergency situations?
Our company's pretty specific. It requires 2 means of egress and egress if you're at 50 units or above. It is potential, most likely they'll do the improvements if they come in for their first preliminary plat. But technically, I guess they could, construct the first entrance and have less than 50 units if they stage it out that way and do the other entrance at a later date. But most likely they would probably end up constructing both, if I would guess.
I remember the wildfires, and it always makes me very nervous to only have one entrance when we're talking about sort of a gated type of area. So I would hope that the developer would look at that and make some assurances that that would be looked at seriously. Okay. Any other questions for transportation or?
Is there a
cities?
seawall involved in any of this, or by the Canoe and Kayak Park? Does that make maintenance difficult for the long term?
There's no seawall involved anywhere other than the potential of the Canoe and Kayak Park, and we'll figure out if that's needed when we design it.
Yeah. Through Mayor, yeah.
Yes.
The canal on the north side of the project, that's existing now? Is it a wet ditch?
It's a ditch.
Okay. Is it going to be excavated further?
Well, it's gonna serve as a drainage ditch.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be deeded to the city. The city actually owns it, and they'll maintain it as they do all other
And
drainage.
what's the approximate width of that now? What's the approximate width of that, the north side?
25 feet, I think.
Okay, so that's the buffer between the lots on your project and the lots that exist now that are backing up to it on that side. On the south side, where the kayak canal will be dug, what's the approximate dimensions of the canal versus the banks on either side?
That parcel's 80 feet wide. And we see
80?
about 80
80,
feet wide.
okay. And the canal will be?
40 feet, we've got a
40 feet.
cross-section that,
So, roughly 20 feet on your side, 20 feet on the south side of the project. Okay.
Any other questions? If not, thank you. We will now open it up to members of the public. We would ask each member of the public, they have 3 minutes to speak. As you can see, we have a new format tonight. The 3 minutes will be shown on our screens. We have our time clock going, so once you announce your name, for purposes of putting your name and address on the record, the clock will begin for the 3 minutes. So, again, every member from the public is welcome to come to the podium.
Jack Carver, Palm Coast. Stop. When they opened this presentation, wait, let me turn this off. When they opened this presentation, they mentioned that the residence will be 6,000 square feet. Isn't that kind of small for a house? When I came here, it had to be at least 12,000 square feet. Now we're building on 6,000 square feet. And how big are the lots? 50 feet? My lot was 80 feet. So we're building smaller homes on less property. And I'm asking why. I thought we had a minimum of how many lots, how many feet you can have.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'd like to request additional 2 minutes. My name is Eric Josie, and I believe you have my papers before you. Being it's a legal presentation, I'd just like an additional 2 minutes to the 3 minutes I'm allotted, if that's okay, if it pleases the council.
We'll stick to the additional 2 minutes, though. So the 3 minutes,
sorry,
we will
sorry.
stick to the additional 2 minutes, though, not going over that. So you
Oh,
will have
absolutely.
you'll have 5 minutes. Once the clock
I
begins,
might not even take the whole 5 minutes.
just so you know, when it runs down, we'll keep the additional 2 minutes.
Somebody
up
just give me
here.
a high sign, that's
Okay,
all.
thank you.
As I said, my name is Eric Josie. I live in the Laramie Drive, Matanzas Woods subdivision that abuts this project. I've been a resident of this community since 2003. My home was built in 2006. I'm also a community leader in all subdivisions of Matanzas Woods, as I denoted in my papers. My biggest thing I want to address is public notice as a matter of statutory law, as you already read. We believe that we were not given proper notice. I haven't spoken to anybody that have actually received a certified letter pursuant to Land Development Code and pursuant to statutory law. If I may just address the statutory law, Florida Statute 163.3225 states in its relevant part, shall also be mailed to all affected property owners before their first public meeting. It is my contention that statutory law states that all members, not just members 300 feet from the perimeter. As has been brought up before, the Land Development Code, Section 2.05.03, Table 2-2 states, applicant mails certified letters to abutting property owners. Well, I spoke to the abutting property owners, and not one of them that I spoke to ever received a certified notice of the meeting. I have reviewed in the record the signing sheet of Mr. Cullis, and there's only 60 names on the signing sheet. And the members that signed in on the signing sheet, their names and addresses did not appear on the Flagler County property notice of 120 names and addresses, 129 names and addresses that he's submitting to the record. I submit to you, of those 129 names, only 37 are in the subdivisions of Matanzas Woods. Many of the addresses are outside of Flagler County. I don't know where he got the 129 names from, as I noticed in the brief in my briefing and complaint. As to the law, it simply states in Florida Statute 163.3211, the provisions of the Act shall govern unless the provisions of the Act are met or exceeded by land development codes. Meaning, very important, it gets to my point about the 300-foot perimeter from the development property. It's my contention that that provision in the code is unlawful and is unconstitutional and does not meet statutory law in this case. Now, this is very important because many of the residents are unaware of this project and did not get an opportunity to express themselves on the record as I am and get written or submitting testimony as on the record. The reason why we are very anxious in our community is because the only two egress and points from this project comes onto Laramie Drive. Now, if I may speak momentarily about Laramie Drive and to Ms. Shipley's point and concern. There's only two points that comes onto Laramie Drive. Laramie Drive is a single road, no two-way lines, but governs two-way traffic at 30 miles an hour. There are at least, to my count, my own eyeball account, counting 62 to 64 homes on Laramie Drive that are directly affected by this project, okay, with their driveways attached directly to Laramie Drive. Also, there are 65 parcels of land that's in the process of being developed on Laramie Drive. Point being that there's only one way in and one way out on Laramie Drive. So what Mr. Cullis is attempting to do is attempting to stuff 108 single-family homes between two subdivisions, which is outlandish. I've seen the project. I don't know how he plans to think that he's not going to disrupt the traffic in that location. And furthermore, I'm asking that this council consider hiring and employing their own traffic survey by FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, that he come down and give an independent, objective view of the location instead of their own hired gun to give information in regards to the traffic survey. That would be highly appropriate. So the key point is that in regards to the meeting, in regards to the mailing, that we have been tried due process under the statutory law. And in respect to the provision of 300 feet from the perimeter, that's the only people that's going to be a notice. I submit to you that it's unlawful and it's unconstitutional, and I request that this council, at the very least, remand this project back down to the planning board for consideration of repeal and amendment of that provision, which does not meet.
Thank you, Mr. Josie. Thank you, Mr. Josie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other member from the public wish to make public comment?
My name is Donna Gilliam. I also live on Lindsay, which is right off Laramie. I teach, I work every morning. I leave just before the students leave, and I see many times the high school students are getting ready to catch the bus. My concern is that this area that now they're going to have 108 homes, potentially, let's say, 2 people per household, cars, that's over 200 cars in and out, whether they're going to work, going also to school. I see bus stops along the way. They say they're going to provide a bus stop for those children within that community, but along Laramie, there are many people that are waiting for buses, and I think that's very dangerous to have that many cars in and out. It's also, I believe, going to lessen my property value because of the types of homes, as this gentleman had said. What kind of home are we having with smaller lot size at 6,000 instead of the usual 10,000? So I'm not quite sure that this is going to be a benefit for our community, as well as it might be even a potential danger.
Thank you.
I'm Heather Bevan, London Drive in Matanzas, and I had the brilliant idea to buy a house on a golf course in 2006. So I wholeheartedly support anything that will jumpstart that neighborhood. The people of that neighborhood are so far under. I'm personally still $75,000 underwater in my neighborhood. Those are our nest eggs. Those are our biggest purchases. And if we can bring somebody in with the caliber and the history of Mr. Cullis and his developments, if we can jumpstart Matanzas Wood into the newest Grand Haven, I cannot support that enough.
Thank you.
My name's Brad West. I live at 44 Lee Drive. I've been in Matanzas Woods for 12 years now. We built on the golf course, which was the golf course. We're very aware of the history in there. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Landon for addressing the multifamily development or parcels there, because that's been a long-standing problem that is going to be future problems. We've already had an issue with one of those parcels in the past. So making those into and encouraging them to be single-family just makes perfect sense. So I just wanted to say I think this project is a win-win-win for everybody. So it just makes sense. I look at those parcels that are on the outside of that community and up around those corners. Anytime you put a house on water, property value just naturally goes up around here. So everybody there, that's going to win. Tax revenue goes up. It's going to be a huge improvement for the area. And the stormwater piece, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've lived through that on several occasions. So having more drainage area in that, it just makes sense. So, and thank you to Mr. Cullis for having a commitment to the neighborhood when he hasn't always been very well received around there. So I just really hope the council approves this.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Council, Mr. Landon. I live on London Drive. My name is Perry Matrano, and we too bought the wonderful Matanzas Golf Course area, and well, it fell apart. And one of the things that I would love to see is beautiful developments come in, very similar to this, something of a grandiose nature. I guess I can understand the folks that live right there in Laramie, how uncomfortable this project could be because they live there. And they have a lot of questions, and it should be all answered probably before the projects really go much further. But at the end of the day, I have to say, it's a quality project. It looks wonderful. I've been in Grand Haven 100 times, seen the similar projects. Been down to Sarasota, very similar projects all over. They look beautiful. And we need something to bring life back to that part of town. So I urge that you vote yes. Thank you.
Any other member from the public?
Mayor, Council. My name is Diana Minotti. I live on London Drive as well. Been a resident since 2005. I paid $80,000 for my lot, so I would love to see a project of this stature come to our area. I feel that Matanzas Woods right now is the unwanted child of Palm Coast. We don't have a sign that says Matanzas Woods. There was one at the corner of Belterre and Matanzas and US 1 in Matanzas. They are gone. We do not have a sidewalk. We have very little lighting. So I think bringing a project such as this will enhance the area overall and really help what is greatly needed. And the idea of bringing a park, all the other subdivisions in our areas either have a school that has some kind of play yard, has a park, a trail, something. So this would be a win-win, I think, not only with a kayak park and some kind of lake. I think that would really enhance the area and bring other future development. The idea of also getting rid of the multifamily housing and going single-family housing is also very much appreciated. So I would vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Creighton Mitchell. I live on Lincoln in Matanzas Woods. And looking at the project, I absolutely agree that substituting or replacing multifamily units with single is a very, very good move forward for us. However, I would address the traffic issue. Just now, with the opening of the interchange of Matanza and I-95, the traffic on Matanza Woods Parkway has increased quite a bit. And when you try and get out in the morning off of Laramie onto Matanza Woods, it's problematic already. If you're going to add more traffic, I think you've got to come up with a better solution, be it a stoplight or whatever. And while you're addressing it, I think you need to address some of the parking habits of the people around there who still park on the side of the street, in the medians, and that Matanza Woods area has been abandoned pretty much by code enforcement in that respect, and more traffic is just going to be more problems with people parking on the street, and also the access from Laramie onto Matanza Woods.
Thank you.
Steve Carr, Palm Coast. I'm also concerned somewhat with the traffic issue because it seems like anything that's developed along the Matanzas or Palm Harbor Parkway seems to find its traffic coming down Florida Park Drive. And right now there's 8,200 cars per day traveling down Florida Park Drive. You multiply it out, that's approximately 3 million cars a year. 60 feet from the bedrooms of the homes there. So I am concerned about the traffic. And so I'd like to sort of be assured that there's going to be some kind of plan that this traffic's not going to fly and find it in my neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other member from the public wish to make comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll take it back to the council. I'll address a couple of the issues that were raised, and then I'll ask some members of the staff in particular if they have to, if they want to add anything to the discussion. Jack, to your point, 6,000 square feet, small lots. These are patio homes. We do have patio homes throughout our community in different locations, and it's about choices and options that we offer to our residents. This is one of many that are coming into different communities as a way of residents that are retired, that are elderly, that do not want big properties or homes to take care of, and it offers them that different option. So it is a shift from what our standard historic many lots of ITT years ago, but we are in 2016 and we're seeing that transition often. So to your point, that is a change, but we are seeing it in other parts of our community that it has already been developed. I'll address the Mr. Josie's concerns in a minute about public notice and 300 square feet, and I'll put that to our city attorney as a way of public law. And as far as the bus stop and the property values, I can tell you those property lots in Grand Haven right now are going for about $400,000. So I can assure you, I believe very strongly you will see an increase in your property value when a development like this comes into your neighborhood. It shifts it dramatically, and we're seeing those prices now that the economy is coming back. We're really seeing those prices come up pretty dramatically. In particular, those kind of homes for those residents that don't want to go out and have to do a bunch of yard work and everything else, but more of the homeowners association models. So, and the property values have held high, in particular with those types of communities. So even when we saw the downturn in the economy, we didn't see as great of an impact on those types of properties because it kept the values so strong. So if you think of a property such as this and the size, very similar to Grand Haven, very similar as far as the sidewalks and the tree growth and everything else that goes along with that type of community, those exact homes today, and I know this for a fact, are about $400,000. So as far as property values, we will address the bus stop issue. I don't think, I think we addressed it as a pad to put on as a safety measure, and I think the city entered into working with the school district as setting up these pads throughout our community as a safety measure for our school-age children that are waiting for a bus stop. And unfortunately, some issues have occurred in the past, and I think we're moving more towards that safety measure as a way to protect the children in our community. And then we have heard from several property owners about the support of this, and taking a comprehensive approach as the city has done, and really addressing the fact that we do have major issues and an impact in our community, on this part of our community, particularly with stormwater and drainage. This is a solution that provides more of a comprehensive approach. So this is more of a phase one approach to many of our obstacles and challenges we face in several parts of our older parts of our community. This just happens to be one of them. And I am excited that we now have the Matanzas interchange that's opened up, because, as I spoke earlier, when you have a history of wildfires in a community, having another evacuation point is really, really critical. So that was a big win for our community. And I think you'll see major improvements because of the accessibility over in that area. So if we could, Mr. Landon, if you could maybe pose it to the appropriate staff or whomever you think. I'd really like to take Mr. Josie's concern first and foremost about the public notice, the proper notice, the 300 square feet. Where do those 129 names came from? And let me just say, we also have a lot of property owners that have different addresses all across the country. So just because they don't go to a Palm Coast address doesn't mean that's not that homeowner. We have snowbirds, we have people that own 2-3 homes, so just because it's not a particular, that address, they're being informed legally. And I believe under the letter of the law, and I think that's been addressed at this meeting, our planning board meeting, as well as the neighborhood meeting. So, Mr. Reichman or Mr. Landon?
Well, Mayor, I'll just introduce it that, yes, planning staff has been working with our city attorney to confirm that we've met all those legal requirements. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Reichman, and he can get input from city staff if he needs.
Generally speaking, as an overview, I think it's important to understand that a lot of the statutory references that you heard tonight and that were contained in the documentation that was presented to you before the meeting, some of them come from the county code and some of them come from the Florida statutes. The ones that come from the Florida statutes do not apply to this particular development because this is not a statutory development agreement. This is based on home rule, and that's set forth in your ordinance as well as in the development agreement. So those particular sections do not apply. What we have done, our office has gone through the issues that have been raised by Mr. Joseph in his written document, and gone through them page by page, line by line, and have worked with staff and have confirmed that what has been complied with are the appropriate legal requirements under Chapter 166, as well as the requirements for notice in our land development code. I'll certainly defer to staff if they want to deal with any specific issues about the 300 feet, or to the extent that it applies, and address some of the specifics, Madam Mayor, that you've already spoken to. But as far as the legal issues, we've gone through it. We went through the issues, and I think to a large degree it's a misunderstanding about which laws apply.
Any, sure.
Petitions, I believe it's special exceptions, you are required to send certified mail. For this type of petition, it's regular mail. Additionally, I went on the Flagler County website and put in the subject property, put in the 300-foot boundary, and came up with 129 names by myself. And I was at the site on Halloween night, about 5 o'clock, 5:15 in there, and did verify that the signs were up and they had the correct dates on, and they were right there on the edge of the right-of-way, and they're in bright orange, so they were rather visible.
Okay.
And I'll just add, that we went above and beyond. We also published an ad in the newspaper prior to the planning board meeting.
So any other legal matters that any other council member would have concerns with, or do you feel our city attorney has addressed?
Well, the only other
that-
point, Madam Mayor, I'd want to point out for the record is that what has been said at the very beginning of this meeting, and that is that there are certain vested rights that this property enjoys as we sit here this evening. So what we're looking at is a difference between what could be done without any rezonings versus what's being proposed this evening, and I think that's an important factor to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and I get phone calls and emails at times saying, well, why does anything have to go out on property? Well, this is private property. The city does not own this property. So this, we have actually set standards that we are now actually addressing in a more friendly manner to have the least impact on different neighborhoods, but also increase value and solve solutions, as I mentioned earlier, with very old infrastructure that we're having to reconfigure our patterns in different parts of our neighborhood. So to that point, something will be developed out there. This is a private property, it's a private parcel, and I agree to your point, Mr. Reichman. Obviously, the two outstanding, well, as far as code enforcement, if we can just assure that our code enforcement will go out there to make sure that in medians, if something's going on with people parking out there, that we'll send people out there.
Well, and I go to code enforcement meetings once a month, every month, and I can assure you the vast majority of the matters that are brought before the Code Enforcement Board, which are members of the public like all of you, are parking issues. That's probably 75 to 80% of all of them. And what code enforcement does is two different ways. Either they respond to complaints, and of course I'm talking to the issues that you've raised this evening, parking in the right-of-way, parking in the swales, parking where they're not allowed to on the lots. These are issues that come before the Code Enforcement Board all the time. And the code enforcement officers go out there either on their own, but a lot of times they respond to complaints. So to the extent that you have these concerns, these are concerns that your code enforcement staff shares, because it's an issue of access to the neighborhood of emergency vehicles. It's very important. So we've got the folks on staff that know how to address it. And I can attest to that because I'll be there tomorrow morning and we've got about 50 cases. So about 40 of them will be parking.
And as far as, again, this traffic study and impact study and transportation study, I'll give it a different analysis. If you look at a comparison, just because I'm very familiar with Grand Haven and the population over there is about 4,000 residents today. So you have 4,000 residents at any given time getting on Colbert Lane, which is, a two-way road. And the fact of the matter is, you're not seeing 4,000 residents at 5 o'clock every single day get on the road at the same exact time. So when they go through these traffic studies and they have that impact, they have models that are universal models that FDOT has, that every other traffic engineer has across the state of Florida, because they have to be in compliance with state law as well. So they're taking those models, they're plugging in the data with the surrounding population, with the impact of the community, with traffic patterns, and taking into account we now have different roadways that we have new to that area. And their findings are very clear. Their findings are showing that the impact actually with this type of proposed development will be less than what was originally proposed that could go in there if this proposed development is not approved. So I want to make that very, very clear. This is not someone that a developer hires that isn't met and isn't required to meet the FDOT standards and requirements statewide. So, Mr. Lassiter, if you want to say anything contrary to that, I believe I covered that very appropriately. Okay. Any other council members have any questions or points of clarity or statements?
I do, just because this is my district, and for the last 2 years with Matanzas Woods Golf Course, everyone has been overwhelmed with whether it's being kept up, and here's a piece of property that's empty, that I think if your property is empty, people don't know what's going to go in there, then your house values will go down. This is telling them, we already know what's going to go in there, this is the plan for it, we know what kind of work he does, obviously, from the Grand Haven, and it's going to be great. And I think we need to look at this as a positive thing, that we're not ending up with another piece of land that's not developed. This might even spur somebody to, to look at Matanzas Golf Course again, not for a golf course, but for something. My concern with Laramie Drive, I was reading some of the paperwork that I had submitted, and it does say that if there was a problem with traffic, that would fall back on the applicant. So if there was any problem, he would have to take care of that also. So I think it's a positive thing, and I hope neighborhoods aren't splitting up over this, but I think it's going to be a good thing in the end. That's it.
Any other questions or concerns?
I had one question for staff. On the, there's obviously the major intersection at Belterre and Lakeview. Has there been any study indicating when a light might ever be necessary at Laramie and Matanzas Woods? Is that an intersection? It's a three-way intersection, so I don't know whether it would be considered for a light at some point.
Not at this time, and this isn't the end of it. When the project comes in, the next step is they'll submit for a preliminary plat, and will we also require a more detailed traffic analysis at that time as well.
Very, very unlikely at a three-way intersection that you would have.
I mean, I would think so, but given the concerns about traffic, I thought it was worth asking. No, my only other comment would echo what Council Member Shipley has said. It's a natural inclination. If you have a big piece of vacant property near you, you just as soon have it stay vacant. But I don't think that helps your property values, and I think it's unrealistic to expect that somebody that owns 27 or 28 acres of developable land is going to leave it undeveloped just so there won't be some additional traffic on a road here or a road there. And given what I've seen done in Grand Haven, I think that despite the misgivings, which I fully understand by some of the residents, it's going to be a community that will be a real asset to the area when it's done.
Vice Mayor Nobile.
I just want to say that the issues that were brought up would basically be in effect in every community. I live in the R section, and all of the R section feeds into Rimfire and down to Belterre. And I've lived there 20 years, and we haven't had, any issues, even widened Belterre. And I echo, I think it was Mr. West said, I would be on your side with the multifamily. That would be outside of the neighborhood, what it would look like, how it should be. Bringing it down to single families, this is just basic development in Palm Coast. There's nothing extra here. And as Mr. Cullis stated, I think we're looking at maybe a year and a half for the entire development. So it's not going to be, 100 units, bam, and then everybody traveling. It's going to be, it's progressive over a period of time, and I think, we can't let this type of development go, because Palm Coast has to grow. If it doesn't grow, it goes away. That's all there is to it. And we just have to try to keep the growth consistent with the rest of the community, consistent with how the community it looks today, how it feels today. Is it going to cause more traffic? Yes. And I'll tell everybody here, because there's probably not many of you who've been here longer than me. I've been here about 35, 36 years almost. So every one of you who moved here caused more traffic in my life. But I'm okay with that, because now we have shopping and restaurants, and I don't have to go to Daytona anymore. That's it, Ms. May.
Mr. Clufus?
Perhaps it's possible, too, looking at a satellite view, that there's an opportunity to kind of deviate traffic by connecting Lancelot to Lakeview, because that's going to be coming right out of the entrance of this. Perhaps that's a way that we can disperse traffic east and west too, because it really is, there's only one way to Matanzas Wood Parkway, because there's not too much to the, yeah, so if we bring up Lancelot, right there on the corner, this guy right there, if you connect Lancelot to Lakeview, and then that's down to Matanzas Wood, you give people an opportunity to make the decision whether they're going east or west on Matanzas Wood Parkway, and that's kind of the situation is on Colbert. You don't necessarily see the traffic all going one direction because people make the decision to go to Palm Coast Parkway or they go to 100. Perhaps there's an opportunity there, but I think this is a good development, and I can attest to the quality in Grand Haven, but I do suspect that this could be an issue if we're forcing all these homes to travel one road without giving them an option to whether they're going east or west before they have to exit.
If I may address that, actually, you don't see it here, but Laramie does tie into Lakeview, just north of there. So it loops around and ties into Laramie. So they would be able to turn right on Laramie out of the development, go out to Lakeview, and then Lakeview is where the signal is, without disrupting the, and you've got a home there or lots there, et cetera. So it actually, the perception that they have to go left directly to Matanzas Woods Parkway at the three-way intersection, they actually have an alternative if it ever gets that bad. And Mayor, if I may, this is really not related to this, but since we have people from the neighborhood, I know one comment was about lack of sidewalk. Our next sidewalk project that we're hoping that will be funded by FDOT with a grant in 2017 is Lakeview, and that we're hoping in the last half of 2017 we will be able to extend the path or the sidewalk along Lakeview, the full distance up to, I think it's London. Also, I hear a lot about, well, we don't have a neighborhood sign because it was on private property and that private property owner took it down. When we build the sidewalk, part of that project will be one of our new black granite type neighborhood signs that will say Matanzas Woods. So since I had the right audience here, it's unrelated to this project, I thought I would let them know that those are in the plans too that we've been talking about for this area.
Thank you. So do we have a motion?
I don't know where the item is.
You don't want
I don't know where the item is. Give me a second here.
back to the ordinance? Okay.
Motion to approve item 3, ordinance 2016 rezoning, 28 acres from Matanzas Land Plan Unit Development, PUD, to Matanzas Land Master Plan Development, MPD.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call to question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, if you could do a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Nobile?
Yes.
Councilmember Cuff?
Yes.
Councilmember Clufus?
Yes.
Councilmember Shipley?
Yes.
Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Mayor, this motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To We'll now move to agenda item number 4, which is resolution approving a contract with Bergman Associates for the creation of the Public Works Facilities Master Plan. Mr. Landon?
Mayor, City Council, this is part of our capital improvement project. Last week, you had a little tour of the facility. I think a lot of your comments were right on target that this doesn't look like Palm Coast. It's been here long before Palm Coast was incorporated, actually probably before ITT started. But we have a very large operation at Public Works, and so the goal here is to make sure that we do this right and do it right the first time, and actually put together a multi-year plan, and Nestor's going to go over the details of that plan with you.
Thank you, Mr. Landon. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening. My name is Nestor Abreu, and I am the city's Public Works Director.
Close the door. Someone close that door, please. Thank you.
Our facility located on US 1, you're just off of US 1, about half a mile north of Palm Coast Parkway, just north of the Florida DOT's way station. We occupy 10 acres is our site. Just north of us is a 5.3 acre site that we plan to include with our master plan, either to develop onto or otherwise to use for trade for a parcel of approximately the same size just south of us. This facility was acquired in 1999 during incorporation from the county, and since that time, not a single improvement has been made to this facility. The components, or what I call the essential components of a public works operation or department, you must have skilled workforce. And we do. We have 104 men and women that work in public works, all very skilled. We'll talk about the workforce shortly. You must have physical assets, your trucks, your heavy equipment, handheld equipment. We have adequate physical assets, over 1,300 pieces, and we'll talk about our assets shortly. And you must have a facility, an adequate facility. We have a facility, but our facility is old and tired and in need of some improvements. As a way to talk about our skilled workforce, I'll talk about the 4 divisions, or they prefer to be called crews. The street crew, this is the crew that maintains our roads, our right-of-way, bridges. They're responsible for overseeing the pavement, resurfacing, and they also do certain construction projects. There's a very skilled group that does our gateway signs, the sign that the city manager was talking about, the neighborhood sign. We'll be doing that one. We also do asphalt work. We've done many sidewalks and path. We've done some impressive stormwater structures. We have built head walls. This group also is responsible for the 53 city traffic signals. They do repair, maintenance of it, installation, 24 hours a day. They're also responsible they manufacture every single city sign, road sign, traffic, information sign. They manufacture that in our facility, and they install all of them. This crew has 32 licensed Florida commercial driver license operators, and 3 traffic signal technicians licensed to do the kind of work that they do with traffic lights, signage, road markings. Second crew, stormwater drainage crew, they maintain all of our roadside swales, our ditches, our road culverts. A very skilled group of 20 equipment operators. You saw all of them during the last 2 months in our neighborhoods, helping do recovery and debris recovery. There's a Parks and Landscape crew. This is the crew that maintains all of the city's 14 city parks. They're responsible for the athletic fields that are in such demand and have become an important part of our economic development. The trails, the landscape medians that our citizens appreciate so much, our visitors appreciate so much, they're responsible for that. 32 men and women, very skilled equipment operators, make up this crew. Facility and fleet. The facility component, 2 operators, they maintain all of the city's facilities. The fleet part of it, they're responsible for acquisition, maintenance of 1,380 city-owned vehicles, heavy equipment, light equipment, and this is all done with 7 mechanics. All of the work that they do in our facility. That includes 220 light vehicles, pickup trucks. They also service at our site, our facility, 352 pieces of heavy equipment,
Some of that equipment is in support of Public Works. More than half of it is in support of our city utility operation. The entire fleet of fire trucks and trailers, we provide maintenance and repair at our facility. And 79 mowers and 700 pieces of handheld equipment. Our site is congested. This is a picture of the west side, west half of our yard. It's congested every morning, it's congested every afternoon. Trying to maneuver to get the vehicles and men and workers and equipment is a challenge. That's the west side. The east side is likewise very congested, and it's a challenge to get men and equipment out of there every morning and in there every afternoon. I want to talk about some of the buildings within our facility. The structure that meets you or greets you when you pull up to our facility is a combination administration and fleet services building. It provides two administrative office in a small meeting room. The first 30 feet of that building, the back 70 feet is where you find the two mechanic bays. It doesn't serve well as a combination administration and fleet services, but we'll talk about that more shortly. This is the mechanics, the bay part of it, the back part of the building. You don't see the bays. The bays on this picture is behind tower number 2. I'll tell you, tower number 2 and most of the fire department equipment, most of our heavy trucks, most of our heavy equipment is serviced somewhere outside of the bays. Most of our equipment doesn't fit in the bays. The bays were designed for your basic pickup and pedestrian vehicles. So a lot of what our mechanics do, they do it under sky. Even the smaller equipment, the smaller pickup trucks, they do outside because there's 2 bays, there's 7 mechanics. There's a facility that's adjacent to but not connected. It's an office trailer. It's a construction trailer that we rent. And we're grateful for that trailer because it provides 4 offices for our supervisors and 2 support staff. Unfortunately, it segregates your administrative staff from your supervisory staff and your support staff. Behind, just south of the fleet services operation is this wooden structure. It provides some storage. It's where we keep our oils, chemicals, and our recycled or used oils and chemicals. And it has compressors, and it serves a purpose, but the building itself is in need of 2 building officials. I'll tell you that your current building official and your first city building official both agree that this building deserves a demolition permit. It's in bad shape. It's a poorly constructed building. Now, there are structures Excuse me. Okay. Now, this is a structure, and not all that's in our yard is wrong or doesn't serve us well. This is a structure that serves us really well. This year, we repurposed this open barn concrete structure, and we enclosed it in fencing material, secured it, provided netting around it or screening to keep the rain and the elements out. And we provided racks, workbench, and have created an area for our small handheld equipment for our workers to come in there first thing in the morning or late in the afternoon and maintain their equipment, clean, lubricate, make sure that equipment is in running shape before it goes out into the field. This building serves us well. There's another building that we call the multipurpose cedar structure. It also serves us. It's just we're asking too much of this building. This is a building where we do all of the traffic sign work, where we manufacture all of our traffic signals,
It serves as the uniform room. It's where the men and women come in and punch in and out. It's where they have access to a computer. When we have our meetings, we can fit up to 30, 35 men and women in there. We can never fit, obviously, our entire staff, so we do it in shifts. Attached to this building is an open barn area that we use to receive delivery. In this picture, you can see with this year, we've done some necessary rehab. We replaced some bad lumber. You can see from the picture, there's a couple pallets of fertilizer. There's some boxes that contain equipment that has to go out to the parks. Ideally, you need an area like this to receive delivery, but that area you would like for it to be secured. You would like for it to be protected from the elements. And you would like to be able to do some assembly also. Those boxes, I know that those boxes, this equipment needs to be put together. You'd prefer to put it together at the shop and take it to the parks where you're going to install it and do the installation there. Okay, employee parking is an issue for us. We have 24 designated parking spaces. We have a staff of 104 men and women that come to work every day, so we improvise. We've listed the needs for our facility, and I think the first item on there, additional fleet work bays. We desperately need additional work bays. We need to update our oil and chemical recovery, update and automate our equipment, our oil and chemical recovery. Storeroom. We have very limited storing capacity. We don't keep stock. We take inventory, or we take delivery for mechanical parts on a daily basis. We don't take advantage of wholesale pricing, where if we had proper storeroom, we could take delivery once a month, once a quarter, and get much better prices. The same thing for a lot of our irrigation parts. We feel that we would benefit from a receiving and fabrication area. We have a lot of congestion of equipment and worker. And we identify a need for a multi-purpose training area that could serve as training meeting rooms, conference rooms, and also can serve as an emergency shelter. I'll tell you that 8 weeks ago, when the storm was approaching and I was leaving the facility looking for a secure shelter, I worried about whether I could get back, whether the men and women who were going to be the first responders out of our facility, that are going to clear the roads so that the fire, police, utility can get out there, whether we'd be able to get to our facility and our equipment. You wouldn't want to shelter the whole of the staff, but 20, 30 men and women, that would be a very good thing to have. And we need to deal with the issue of employee parking. Now, our strategy for master planning is exactly that we want to consider all of our needs, our current needs, our future needs, plans for the future. The worst thing is that we go fix something today only to find that whatever we did is in the way of our needs 5 years from now, 7 years from now. So we want a comprehensive master plan that also looks at integrating all of the facility functions. In other words, we wouldn't want to build bays but squeeze out where the swale crew parks their equipment and their materials. So it has to be integrated with all of the city functions. We set out to do a selection, with our selection process, to find a firm to work with us and create the master planning. Part of the process includes a 5-member employee selection team. This is members from planning, from community development, engineering, project management, and public works. We put out requests for qualifications, and we reviewed all the submittals. And 2 firms that were rated highest were invited to come tour the facility and then be interviewed by staff. The team ultimately selected the firm of Bergman and Associates,
and we negotiated a fee-for-service of just under $90,000. At the presentation last week, that presentation showed additional $10,000. Since then, we've cut back on the site selection scope, realizing that we have basically completed that task ourselves. The scope of services, the work that this firm will do for us, they will do programming. Programming is basically quantifying needs. How many feet, how many rooms, what area. They will do the site master planning.
How long, Nestor, how long do they project out? Meaning, we know, it's difficult to know additional population with different additional services that we will provide or need to provide for the city of Palm Coast, as far as additional fire trucks as development comes back again, what impact that will have. How far in advance does this scope of services, do we require them to project it out?
We'll be looking at 15, 20 a year at least.
Okay.
So they will provide site master planning. They will do preliminary design, which we get to review. They will do building conceptual design, and then provide the project budget and schedule. That's what they do. What we will receive in hand, we will receive from them site master plan drawings. We will get conceptual building plans, and we'll get conceptual floor plans for each of the buildings that we propose, and the project budget and schedule. Our approach on this project is, first is several months ago during budget, to make sure that this study is budgeted for, and it is currently in budget. Then we would like to provide the contractor or the firm a notice to proceed in this January, have them complete the plan. We would then integrate it with our capital improvement plan, and then come back to council in the May, June timeframe to talk about the plan, talk about the schedule, and talk about the budget on any improvements we would make.
And as far as the budget goes, I know that we've accounted and budgeted for this, and at our workshop, we talked about moving forward. If we're going to spend this money, then, you know, we understood that we would move forward with the project, understanding the need for it. But do we have the money in our 5-year capital plan for the capital expenditure? Meaning, is anything else going to be taken out? And if so, what would that be?
Yes, if I recall, it's about 3 or 4 years out is when we first anticipate actually starting significant improvements that are in the capital improvement budget. It's always, I mean, when you get the, third, fifth year out, it's always subject to change. But right now, there are program dollars for these improvements. As we've indicated, the plan is to do it over multiple years. In other words, not all the buildings at the same time, not necessarily the parking lot at the same time, a building, it may be a variety of improvements throughout a variety of years. What we're trying to do right now is not just go out and do an improvement and hope it's in the right place, but actually determine the best circulation and the best location for improvements.
So what we're about to do is determine what we're going to do.
Correct. Yes.
Yep. Where did this $6 million 5-year term come from? Okay.
Help me out with that one.
It's in Flagler Live. We've got a $6 million, Palm Coast favors $6 million reconstruction of public works facility off US 1 over 5 years. I just read it sitting down before I was coming in here today, and I went,
let me
remember discussing a number.
Let me pull up.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want you to kill any time right now on that. I was just wondering if actually they called somebody and that those figures came up. from staff?
Finance director.
Because I don't know.
We have not had discussions.
Okay.
And that number is foreign to me.
Okay, because that's why I was sitting thinking, wait a minute, I thought we were going to approve the funds
Do a
to
plan.
determine what we were going to do.
Correct.
And I think I asked last week if there was a predefined budget, and we said no, it's whatever they come up with, so.
Right now, it's just
Yeah, okay,
basically
so it didn't,
placeholders out there in the future. Until we get a better idea exactly what
what
we're
we
talking.
need to do,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Okay, I just didn't want to make sure you weren't telling me something, Esther.
So the placeholders, is that what you're referring to in the capital projects 5 years out?
Yes, and I've just pulled it up, and
Maybe that's where it came from.
the
is the $2
significant
million.
dollars would be on 21 and 22, and both of those are $2,750,000, so.
And none of that's been approved, and none of that's been,
Yeah, I mean, the 5-year, the
defined.
only thing that you actually allocate would be the current year's budget. So,
$89,000 for.
yeah. And currently, what we have in the budget for this year, let me make sure I've got the right
300.
line, is $300,000. So this study is substantially less than what was in the budget.
Does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes the presentation.
Any other questions or any questions from council members? I know we had a lengthy discussion at our workshop, so seeing none, I'll ask for a motion. Oh, do we have to take public? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, gosh.
Sorry, breathe.
I'll open up to public comment at this time. Any member from the public wishes to make comments? You keep your comments to 3 minutes each. And please,
Come on, Jack.
So it's you?
Robin McDonald, Palm Coast. You need $100,000, right? To do what you want to do? Okay. Mr. Nobile, please don't take this personal. We lose $300,000 a year to that golf course that I keep fighting about. So instead of taking $300,000 and putting it into an amenity, why don't we give this fellow right here the $100,000 he needs, because his department makes Palm Coast look and work and function like it does. Give him the $100,000, let him do what he needs to do, and we'll move on. He needs the $100,000. If the fire department needed $100,000, or the sheriff's office needed $100,000, we give it to him like that.
This guy's going to get
Give
elected.
the man the $100,000 that he needs. That's it. Done.
thank you. Any other member wish to make public comment?
Louis McCarthy, Palm Coast. It's just that the amount of money we're talking about for what we're doing, and these are actual studies of things that we know has to be done. Now, it's where it's going to be done, how high it's going to be, and all that. That's the factor that I'm sure will be worked into this thing. Does it really cost this much for those kind of things? I know, I'm not saying it doesn't have to be done. It has to be done, because men working outside on things, on the materials and cars and stuff like that, I've done it. So I know. It ain't easy, and I got the bad knees and stuff to prove that I've worked outside. So I don't particularly like to see guys working out there under the elements like that, or unprotected equipment coming in and just laying around willy-nilly, you know.
Thank you.
Hi, Perry Matrano, London Drive. I would like to say that as a taxpayer, the Public Works Department does a fabulous job. I do have to make a little disclaimer on my way out, but I will say that, you know, when they first started this city, you had a small Public Works building, and then they need a little more room, so they built another one, and that's generally the way it gets done, and then you outgrow it. And you're at that point. Then there's a point where you just explode, and you just don't have a choice. You have a lot of equipment, a lot of trucks, a lot of people, and that all has to be managed very well. and they're doing an unbelievable job, I have to say that. So as a taxpayer, I say, please give them the capital to do this project, and I say build the buildings that they asked to do, and you'll plan over 20 years, and I'll be retired long by then, and I thank you for everything. And I'm another public works professional, so I do have to say that, not sticking up for that side, but I do stick up for that side too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. What we have now is going to be there for the next 20 years. If you got the east side congested with trucks and the west side is congested with trucks and buildings have to come down, all this it should be done. But 5 years from now, when we order 3 or 4 more trucks for paving, and we order more equipment, just where do we put all this equipment? We've only got 10 acres, and you can't take a rubber band and stretch it and make it into 20 acres. So, nobody here mentioned yet where we're going to get the additional property from and how much that's going to cost us.
Any other member from the public?
George Mail, Palm Coast. The men and women that work there, I did 10 years in construction, they need a facility like this. That's plain, simple, and obvious. So I hope we can expedite it in any way. What I did not see in pictures in the presentation or mentioned in any of the briefs was any kind of locker room for these people. People there working with chemicals, if they spill it on them or get sprayed, there should be some kind of shower that they can use. I'm sure, people who have an office job can get in their car and go home. If you're sprayed with oil or some chemicals, you just might not necessarily want to jump in your car and go home at the end of the day. So I'm hoping that is in the presentation, but wasn't mentioned, but if it isn't, that should be included. Thank you.
Any other member wish to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. To address the commenters, just to be clear, what we're spending this money on, or we're approving to spend the money on, is master planning the entire facility. So what the company will do, and they have a vast background of experience of planning these types of facilities, they will take our footprint lot and they will project phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of the needs today, the needs tomorrow, and the needs 15, 25 years out. So we have a sense of what future population and growth will look like and what that will mean as far as city services. So that is part of the discussion. And right now, all you have to do is go out and look at a tour. You can do a lot with 10 acres. I think the immediate need, what we saw when we toured the facility, obviously are safety for our public works employees that are having to take care of their equipment and not do it in the safest manner possible is something that we obviously see an immediate response. So tonight only is what we're talking about, is just to go out and approve the cost for the company to go out and master design the facility. As far as locker rooms included, do you know, or they're just looking at the needs as part of the scope of services, correct?
At this point, yeah, that's part of the first process is identifying needs.
And
it would be most appropriate, as the gentleman said, for employees to have an employee area where they can come in and wash up, change out of the uniform.
And it comes back to this council to approve the final master design and plan moving forward. So that's something we'll most certainly take into account, and I appreciate your comments. I agree has to be done. As far as taking money from our Parks and Rec Department and putting it into our public works, that's not customarily how city governments operate. You take a fund and
If this council ever decides to do something different with the golf course, those monies will be decided at that time. I've not heard that, so what we're addressing here tonight is already approved in the budget as far as the cost for master planning. So I think that covers all of the public comments. Does any other council member have any other comments?
Mayor, if I could address one other issue, and that is the long-term. We own additional land out there, so there is room for expansion, and I want to make that real clear. What you see as far as the fenced-in area and the asphalt area, no, that doesn't accommodate our needs in the future, but we really have potential for more than twice that area of property we own in the area. So that will get folded into the program. I want to make that real clear, that we're not trying to keep the same size property.
Yeah, my only comment is I think the need is obvious. I think to clarify one of the points raised by one of the members of the public, don't take this personally, Nestor, but I'm not going to approve a dime over $89,996 tonight. You're not going to get the extra 10 grand or whatever tonight. But whatever this...
And neither is the chief.
Yeah,
let's
whatever, exactly,
you know,
but whatever, I mean, I am very anxious to see what this study has to say about the future development of that area, because I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't agree that it's long overdue.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is the resolution approving a contract with Bergman and Associates for the creation of the Public Works Facilities Master Plan. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. This portion of our agenda, we will recess the City Council meeting and convene our CRA board meeting, which we are the CRA. So we'll now move to... Okay, I'm like, where does that noise? This is the hearing the State Road 100 Corridor Community Redevelopment Agency, Resolution 2016 approving sale of city property to Unicorp under Palm Coast Town Center LLC.
Mayor, City Council, this is a project that was started a number of years ago when we first became a community. And it was really geared towards addressing the old part of State Road 100 in the area of Bulldog Drive. There's Midway, there's a couple other streets in that area that were old Florida, as we were starting to see town center and new development along State Road 100. So with the CRA, we were able to take new tax dollars generated from the town center area. And actually, initially, the main project was to start buying up lots in that area and cleaning them up with the idea of redevelopment. We now have a proposal for the redevelopment. So this is really kind of going on to the next phase of our master plan for that area. And Bo is going to talk to you about the details of what is being proposed with currently tonight.
Good evening, CRA board members. I'll just go through a little bit of the background and then talk about the redevelopment proposal, the developer partner that has come forward, the conceptual plan, some of the key agreement terms, a little bit of analysis, and then a recommendation for you this evening. There is a representative from the developer as well, should you have questions or any member of the public have questions at the end of the presentation. So a little bit of background. The CRA was started in 2004 with a 30-year time horizon. In 2008, the City Council updated the master plan, which governs how the CRA operates, along with Florida statutes, Chapter 163. The plan in 2008 includes a capital improvement plan, and it also kind of talks about the strategies to eliminate or reduce blight, and mainly focused in those two target acquisition areas known as Midway Park, which is the old subdivision along Bulldog Drive, and Whispering Pines, which everyone generally knows from the place they may get their tires from in this community, AK Tires, and those lots behind there. Both of these areas were platted before the city was a city, including no infrastructure. All was on sewer and well, dirt roads, stormwater issues from time to time, so that old Florida kind of subdivision. Just to kind of remind us, because I think we all forget what this area looked like before the CRA and what even Bulldog Drive looked like in the lower left-hand corner before the road that is now the entranceway to our new downtown Bulldog Drive. Quite a difference from the typical Palm Coast standard, and one of the reasons why the CRA was formed. So a little bit of background, with the improving economy as we came out of this national recession, we really started looking at redevelopment options. The city, from 2004 on, acquired property basically at appraised value, or if we need it for the right-of-way for Bulldog Drive, sometimes in excess of appraised value. And so really, we've purchased quite a number of the lots there in both those subdivisions and wanted to look at some possible redevelopment options. In addition, we engage Buxton to do some retail recruitment and strategy. So those kind of strategies met together, and also your related performance measure to seek out redevelopment proposals for this area. So we issued an RFP for redevelopment on August 4th. We received one response from Unicorp, which is the developer partner for this redevelopment proposal. Unicorp was covered more in depth at our workshop, so I'm kind of refer you to those comments, but they're a developer out of Orlando. They've done about 2.5 million square feet of commercial and residential development, most notably some Trader Joe's developments, some development there in Winter Park, and the Orlando Eye is also one of their developments, so a reputable developer partner. They submitted a proposal to the CRA board and for the city for consideration. That included 2 phases of development. That includes both public and private property. And of course, either they have private property under contract or they'll be negotiating with private property to be part of the deal. But phase 1 includes this parcel here, which includes both public and private property. Includes a Wawa, which is located here, a Wawa convenience and gas station, and also a restaurant pad, which is located here. Phase 2 is basically an option for redevelopment. It includes this whole area and includes 3 commercial buildings currently proposed for commercial and retail development. Once again, just in written format, phase 1 will include that Wawa gas and convenience station of 6,000 square feet. A restaurant pad. Unicorp is actively seeking tenants for that restaurant pad and has some preliminary interest. And then phase 2 is approximately 30,000 square feet of retail and commercial. I'll go through a few of the key agreement terms. Phase 1, the CRA/city will transfer the city-owned parcels to Unicorp, which are these 2 parcels here at the corner here. In exchange, Unicorp will develop per the conceptual plan. They also have to purchase the McGann property, which is here, prior to closing with the city for the city property, and then pay the SR 100 CRA city $800,000, which will go back into the CRA fund per statutes. And then also the agreement includes a term that if they're able to purchase adjacent property and property in the phase 2, that they would transfer that property to the city and the city would provide a credit to the developer for that purchase. For phase 2, it's really a developer option with a mutual party extension to occur 210 days following phase 1 closing. The city would transfer the city-owned property to Unicorp. Unicorp once again developed per the conceptual plan, purchasing necessary private property to effectuate the development, and then a payment to the SRA 100 CRA based on appraisal. And if there's a disagreement, a developer can get an appraisal and then get a third appraisal if we all disagree. A little analysis about what the city has invested in those parcels. I should have changed this slide so you could see it. I apologize. Let me do that real quick. Yes. The city has invested net $1.15 million in the property subject to this exchange. Sorry, 1 second. We purchased the 2 parcels formerly known as Third Coast Holdings and Mary Johnson. which was approximately 2 acres. Of that 2 acres, we retained square footage for the future four-laning of Bulldog Drive, so that square footage is not part of this deal, so the net acquisition cost was $1.15 million. We look at consideration given for the $800,000 paid to the CRA, along with the tax increment that's going to be realized over the life of the CRA from the development. And in Phase 1, that's estimated at $676,000, and Phase 2, $1.4 million. And there's based on those key assumptions of both the tax rates and the value and appreciation. Based on this, city staff is recommending approval of the contract for purchase and sale. It generates a net positive impact to the CRA and the city for Phase 1 of $1.4 million versus our investment of $1.15 million. And if Phase 2 should occur, an additional economic impact of $1.4 million. It also furthers the CRA goal of reducing and eliminating blight by causing the redevelopment. And this is really the only proposal received to date with the developer partner that includes private property in the redevelopment and not just the city property. Just a note, tonight you're both for the CRA board and the city considering formal approval of the contract. Of course, with any commercial development, there's a due diligence period where the developer partner would seek approvals. Some of those approvals would quite possibly come back to the planning board and city council for action. And then, of course, the real estate closing. So this is the first step in the process for redevelopment. And with that, I'm available for any questions as well as representatives from Unicorp.
Any questions?
Yes, Ms.
Yes.
Bo, am I correct in saying that the applicant is in contract, they're under contract for that property, the used car lot area?
Yes, the applicant is under contract for what's known as the McGann property, and I believe they're also under contract with Shoemate, which is an adjacent parcel that they're able to reach an agreement with.
In Phase 2?
Which is in Phase 2, but will be transferred to the city as part of Phase 1.
Councilmember Nubile, I just want to point out, this is going to have to give credit to Councilmember Cuff on this, but in your contract for purchase and sale, there was one small change. This is on page 4 in section Roman numeral 3. Changing some language to clarify that the closing of the purchase of the McGann property was going to have to occur before the closing of the Phase 1 property. So that just clarified some language, so there couldn't be any question that this wasn't going to happen unless and until that property was purchased to allow the transfer.
Yeah.
Any other comments? We'll now open up to the public for comment.
First question I have. The first question I have is, why do we need another gas station? In the 6 square mile area of Palm Coast, we have 8 gas stations. One more going up where on Route 100 and Belterre, which is the Aldi. And somewhere along the line I heard this, another one is being proposed. That would be 9 or 10 gas stations for 6 square miles. It's 1 1/3 gas stations for every square mile. Why do we need that? Why do we need an additional? Why do you go out to a place like Wawa? It's a gas station. Gas stations aren't pretty. And I'm sure you would want a Wawa next to your house or on the corner of your property. Now I got to come to the. We spent $1,500,000 to buy that property. And we're going to give it to Unicor for $800,000. You should all have beards. You become Santa Clauses. You're giving $300,000 or $300,000 for what? To bring in a gas station. And like Mr. Landon says, it's prime property. Any property on Route 100 is prime property. So we're going to stand here and take a loss of $350,000 so the guy can build a gas station. With that property, I'm sure that if you put that property up, somebody would take it, somebody else than the gas station would take it. You know, I think you're going a little bit too far on this. $300,000. It's a gift. You know what I say? People of Palm Coast, if you agree to it, say nothing. If you don't agree with it, say something. I don't believe you people are going to give a $1 million corporation a $300,000 gift. Christmas comes early for these people.
George Mayo, Palm Coast. Driving up or down Bulldog Drive coming towards City Hall, setback, it seems there's a single-family home. Is that in part of Phase 1, Phase 2, or are they going to be left alone and built around, or are they going to have a right-of-way, or what is that?
Other member from the public wish to make public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Mr. Lane, I'll turn it over to you, but as far as a gas station, just, there's a school of thought by saying competition is a good thing and drives the cost down for a service. And I can assure you, our gas prices are higher for a reason. And you can go to the south and you can go to the north and they're less because you have way more gas stations in condensed areas. But Wawa isn't just a gas station, Jack. It's not. It's much more than that. And anybody that comes from different parts of the country will tell you they're very excited about this. They offer a lot more services than just providing gas. And I will say, just as an aside, we are very limited on what we can tell a property owner what they can put on their property when it's zoned for a certain purpose. So just so for clarification, I know residents again will call or email saying, you know, how many more restaurants or how many more pizza places do we need or how many more of this, stop putting dollar stores in. Well, the fact of the matter is the economy drives those choices, and we're very limited on what we can say to a private property owner, what you can put and how when it's zoned for a particular purpose. But as far as the cost, we'll turn that over to Mr. Lynn.
Can I respond to that?
No, Jack, this 3 minutes are done.
Oh, I didn't have 3 minutes.
Well,
First of all,
public participation is closed. Thank you.
I have got to address another gas station, because for many years, everybody wanted to know how come we didn't have more gas stations on State Road 100. So I find that a little ironic. Yes, there's a couple of factors. First of all, it's important to realize that the dollars that we spent to purchase this property is town center CRA dollars. They weren't general tax dollars. And they were specifically to do a couple of things: to improve Bulldog Drive, and also to improve the whole entrance in the town center, along with the appearance of State Road 100. So with those goals in mind, realizing at the time, plus it was a different time. We bought it back in the day when prices were going sky high very quickly, and so yes, we realize that the value, the property, the purchase price is more back in those days than what we're selling it for now. But we did do some research as far as values in the area, and probably the best example is another very valuable corner, and that is at State Road 100 and Seminole Woods, where a little racetrack is about ready to open. Based on public record, they paid $13.25 a square foot. We are selling the corner of Bulldog Drive and State Road 100 for $14.40 a square foot. So that $800,000 per square foot is actually more than at Seminole Woods and State Road 100. Usually, the closer you are to an interstate, the more valuable the property, so without a formal appraisal. Plus, we require them to obtain the car lot. They're paying $40 a square foot for that car lot. And we had many people, and this is where maybe some of the comments came from, that said, oh, we buy that corner from you, but they weren't willing to spend the money on anything else. So that is what makes, in our opinion, when you combine the fact that we're selling our property in today's prices for more than what the corner of Seminole Woods and State Road 100, plus we have conditions on them that cost them more money than would be typical, plus this meets the goals of the CRA, and only CRA dollars are going towards this. So from a financial standpoint, and meeting those goals is good. The other question, yes, there is a home back there, and there are some, and the presentation showed those. We're going to make sure there is public access, have to make sure that there's public access. And in phase two, well, you know, even in phase one, there's some property there. And I can tell you that we have some of those property owners in the audience, and they're very interested in what's going to happen in this neighborhood. The fact of it is we've been paying appraised value for a number of years. This is part of that, and there will be continued discussion. But in the meantime, we will make sure that they have access to their home or their property. We have to, and we'll do that. And hopefully, either the city or Unicorp will reach an agreement with them or a reasonable price for the rest of the property as part of this. At this point, the only thing that we're really requiring, and Bo, correct me if I'm wrong, is this our parcels plus the McGann property, which is the used car lot. All the others would be something that hopefully will come in the future.
Any member of the council have any comments or questions?
Steve, I think one other point that at first sort of baffled me, you know, the whole issue of the sales price versus what we paid for it. But I think Mr. Landon's explained a lot of that. But the other thing I think we need to keep in mind is that by not selling this property, by not putting it back on the tax rolls, we're in effect spending the taxpayers' money by not collecting any from a commercial development on this property. My first thought was, well, there's no carrying cost to it, so why don't we sit around for a shinier white knight to come riding in here in 5 years and pay us $1.2 million or, you know, whatever we think we might get somewhere down the road. But I think it's important to keep in mind, and Bo's projections demonstrate this, that if we wait another 5 years and we get a few $100,000 more or closer to our purchase price, we've lost 5 years' worth of tax revenue to the city and the county and the CRA and the citizens of Flagler County overall. So that, I think, is a significant part of what we need to consider. In addition to which, I've seen, I was a little disappointed we only had one person that responded to the RFP, but I have seen Unicorp's work in the Winter Park area in Central Florida. I'd like to think this will look as nice as the Trader Joe's and the Shake Shack over in Winter Park. I kind of doubt it will because there's no nice lake and some other features, but I have confidence in the partner that we've found, and I have high hopes certainly for phase one, and we'll see how it goes from there is my attitude toward this.
Just a couple of statements. First, you got to remember in that area, a lot of the gas stations in that 6 mile area are right off 95. So that always creates a collection of gas stations. I don't like going down that way for gas because it's congested and I go the other way. So these are more, the new gas stations that are going in are more community driven. However, Wawa will draw from 95. And as they come through our community on 100, hopefully they go shopping in our stores and, you know, it generates. But the big picture here is, and I understand, Jack, when I read this first and I saw that, I was like, what? But when you think about it, our job is to create an investment here. We're not property owners. You know, the city is not in the real estate business. We purchase that land to hopefully put together the package to entice the developers to come in, not so much as an investment to make money later on down. If we did, great. If we do, but we are going to make money, even though this only sold for, not only. Even though I wish I had $800,000 to say only. But even though it was $800,000 less than with the tax that we're going to get from just phase one, we're going to make that back. Phase two comes in, and the big picture is that development starts moving into town center. And we start getting those properties developed, and then we really start getting a tax base growing, you know, and a real community going. So this is a good thing. We're just going to have to hope that the developer really makes it happen, because that's his job. We did our job.
Any other council comments?
I have one, just
Yes.
in the square foot paid. It's interesting because if you've ever had a Wawa sandwich, you understand that the property on the corner there next to the school is much more ideal than Seminole Woods and 100. I would argue that the Wawa would be way more successful right next to a school. I can guarantee you're going to have an entire school going to get sub sandwiches each day. So I thought that was a moot point, but still I hope that it follows suit with the rest of their project, because I did a ton of Googling. I can't find anything negative about you guys, so keep it up.
Who's that, Wawa?
Yeah.
Unicorp, yeah.
Oh, Unicorp, okay. I have to try one of these subs.
Change your life.
Is it, like, I don't understand.
They're up, yeah.
If there's nothing further, we will take it back for a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Cuff,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Nobile. Any other comments? If none, I'll call to question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We will now adjourn our CRA board meeting and reconvene our city council meeting. We'll now move to consent agenda items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. If any member from the public wishes to make comments on any of those issues, please do so at this time.
6, 8.
Approve the rest, yeah.
So I'd ask for a motion to approve consent agenda items number 7, 9, 10, and 11.
Move approval?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 6. Jack?
Mayor, City Council, for the public, it's the City Council approval of the same item that you just heard as the CRA Board. And it's identical. It just takes both CRA Board and City Council's approval. So we don't have any additional presentation, obviously.
Okay, thank you. This is a resolution approving a sale of city property to Unicorp under Palm Town Center LLC.
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. This is my 3 minutes. Every gas station in Palm Coast raises their rates at the same time. There is no competition. There's no gas station that's selling 2 cents cheaper, because if it goes 2 cents, everybody else goes 2 cents. I think they have a corporation that says, we'll raise it today and we'll drop it tomorrow. This property is not owned by Unicorp, unless you sold it already. This is not private property. So what you said was that we don't have any jurisdiction over private property. This is public property. This is property owned by the people of Palm Coast. This is property that you're going to barter for and lose $300,000. And you're saying it's a nice place. you're going into the future. And nobody, like Mr. Ness says, nobody has a crystal ball. So, they may be a big corporation, they may not be a big corporation. They may have wonderful food, they may have a nice restaurant. That doesn't make them profitable. Taxes, yeah, well, we're going to get taxes no matter what. So our property stays empty. It's been empty now for what, for 5 years? Right? And I didn't see anybody make a move. So, but now here comes the unicorn with a Wawa and the restaurant. Right? They're going to sell gas. You sell gas from a gas pump. You put a gas pump up, you can't hide it. It's not like you're going to put a drape over it and say, you know, you want to move the drape. It's not, I don't live too far from it anyway, but I have enough gas. If you go down, if you want a gas, I don't know where you live, but you go down 100 and you've got 3 gas stations. You got one as you come off 95. So why would somebody go past that gas station for gas to go up to the Wawa? If a guy's traveling to Orlando, he's certainly not going to start looking around for a gas station. This is the gas, I'm getting off, and that's where it's going to be. If he's going on towards the shore, he's got 2 gas stations.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Thank you for your comments. Any other member wish to make comment on agenda item number 6? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we'll take it back to agenda item number 6. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 8, approving the contract with Tri-County Bobcat Services for code enforcement, mowing, and general cleanup services, public nuisance.
Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. Does anybody have any idea how much this contract is going to cost? Because it doesn't say, it just says that you folks are going to approve a contract for an outside agency to come in and cut and grass and maintain what the city of Palm Coast has been doing probably since 1999. If the code enforcement has an issue with property maintenance, they go through their procedure, and eventually it goes to the courts, and the judge rules that they got to maintain the property, and if they don't, the city will put a lien on the property, but eventually the property will get maintained. So why are we going to, first of all, there's no dollar amount to how much this new contract's going to cost, and I think Mr. Kufa sitting there and agreeing with me. So there's no dollar amount to show how much this new contract's going to be, so we don't know how much it's going to be. And that should be a number that should come out so that the public can make a comment on how much the new contract's going to be. But more importantly, we'd have to find out why we can't continue to use city workers or hire people to maintain these properties that are all over the city that are not being properly maintained. So maybe somebody can give me a dollar number. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member from the public wishes to make comment on agenda item number 8?
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. Why don't, I remember we used to contract with the prison for their inmates. And they used to come down and they used to do the roadways, and they used to do the weeding and the cutting. And so why did we stop that, or did we stop? Because I don't see them anymore. And they were, I guess they were reasonable, because they only get like $2 a day. So the whole point is, why don't we look back into that instead of hiring an outfit to do the work?
Thank you. Any other member from the public wish to make comment on agenda item number 8? Seeing no one, I'll close public comment. The cost to maintain it, it is in our backup. We don't approve contracts without costs attached to them. It's
Let me maybe address that, because it's actually on an as-needed basis. Our budget amount is $50,000, and that's what's in your packet, Mayor, that you're looking for. But it's actually by the job, depending on what it is. This is removing trees, maybe dangerous trees, general cleanup what somebody doesn't take care of. It could be mowing the lawn, a variety of things. The reason why we don't use city crews or the prison labor is because it's on private property. We only use city crews and our prison labor on public property. This is actually a process we have to go through to give them notice, and if they give them time to make the corrections. If they don't, then we contract based on the price agreement we have in this contract, depending on what the cleanup is all about. Then we have a firm price that we attach to the property. And so this way, other people are not paying for that with their tax dollars for public employees. Plus, there's nothing worse than having public employees going on private property cleaning things up because the neighbors don't understand how come Mr. Jones got his property cleaned up and not me. And so it gives us a firm price that we can attach to the property, plus it keeps our employees working on public property and not on private property. So that's kind of the explanation. This is a company that we've been working with for a number of years. They do an excellent job, and their prices are very reasonable. And we highly recommend approval of this and allowing us to continue with contracting with them to clean up properties that the L section says we're not doing, so maybe this will, no,
And I think we talked about that at the workshop, that she did say she had a price schedule that she goes back to when she's coming up with the prices. What I was wondering is, do we know who did this contract before this, last year?
Tri-County is doing it right now for us.
They always did it?
I think it was it's
Like
either
a
3 or...
Post company would come forward. This is Benel.
No, well, I can tell you that a lot of the companies that do this would prefer not having to deal with our bureaucracy and deal with us, because they're very busy. During the hard times, we got a lot of bids on these type of things, but right now, not so much. We only got 2 proposals, and they are proposals, not just low bid, because we need to make sure that they have the experience and background on this. The other one is from DeLand, so Bunnell is at least a Flagler County, and our purchasing policies considers anybody within Flagler County as local.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Motion and
Second.
second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. That brings us to public participation. Part of our agenda, again, any member from the public, please feel free to come up and speak on issues that were not on the agenda. And your 3 minutes will begin once, state your name and address for the record.
I'd like to revisit the new traffic light at Old Kings and Town Center Boulevard. I have to say, driving through there as an automobile driver, you guys did it right. As a bicyclist, it's a complete failure, all right? I feel less safe now than I did before there was a light, because now the drivers are not looking both ways. They say they have a green light, even though I've pressed my button to cross. They're going, all right? That's just one light. 2 weeks ago, my wife and I and a bunch of us were riding on the Lehigh Trail, and we came out on where Royal Palms crosses 1. We were going to go to Espanola. So we wait for the crosswalk to turn. We start out, and this car cuts in between us. at a high rate of speed, okay? We were wearing our bright yellow vests because it was a cool day at the time. So what we've decided to do now is to ride on the road and not on the trails, okay? So when I come down Town Center Parkway, I ride in the road. It is safer to ride in that road to get through that intersection than it is to ride on the bike path and try to get through. And we ride down Royal Palms. And when we want to cross at Belterre and stuff, many of us cross at the Fire Station 24 crossover because we feel that that's safer than the crosswalk either at East Hampton or at Royal Palms, okay? There is no signage at any of those things that tells the drivers to yield to cyclists and pedestrians. And none of them really look at the crosswalk signs, okay? So I fear, I'm a defensive cyclist, but I know there's a lot of children out there riding who don't pay attention to anything. And what is it going to take? Deaths to get some of this change? So if we could just please change those traffic signals so that when somebody presses the crosswalk, that the lights stay red until the crosswalk part has completed, okay? Then we can get through. I have people yell at me, throw things at me. They don't think that cyclists have any rights in crosswalks. Well, they don't read the Florida statutes, okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other member from the public wish to make public comment?
Leonora Deglin, City of Palm Coast. I have actually 3 questions. And I was trying to get here 3 months, and I couldn't make it. So the first question is about the smart lights that we have throughout the city that are not actually being used in a smart way because they have been turned into rigid position. When you see it at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday, no traffic, and you see it, and you see it, and you see it. Like, let's say, Route 100 and Seminole Woods Boulevard. Somebody switched that light, and now it doesn't detect the traffic. That is one issue. Another issue is, and tomorrow I'll have a hearing about the code enforcement hearing, but that is the story that I heard at the code enforcement when I came with my citation. And gentleman came and he said his neighbor doesn't spray the lawn and the bugs are crawling to his yard. And the lady told him, we cannot dictate what people should do. But he kept on complaining. So she asked whether the grass is there. Yes, it's not dead. Is it cut? Yes, it's cut. Then she said, you know what? Anyway, we're going to send a code enforcement officer. Maybe he will find something to cite that person for. So my question is, why is code enforcement going vindictively after those unfortunate homeowners that happen to live next to those complaining ones? The ones that we are wiping their noses like nannies, because they're coming and complaining all the time. Why wouldn't we then use another position? You come and you complain, and we will send an officer, but first we'll inspect your property. Maybe you have something, and we will cite you. And we will check another property as well, and then it will stop. And the third question is this. Why is that so many corporations that own undeveloped lots in Palm Coast are allowed not to pay taxes? Let's say I own undeveloped lot. Somehow I am paying full taxes. Yet so many lots are being owned by corporations and it says drop lot. When that lot has been sold to a private owner, it immediately gets a full amount of taxes. I contacted the appraiser's office and they said this is a City of Palm Coast that allows that to happen. Why is that? The private owner has to pay the full amount and corporations are excluded. Those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. wait, and then if you'd state your name? Thank you.
Lynn Weaver, 5719 North US Highway 1. Since it's not public information, I'll ask the council, when was the last time the IT and city software had an audit? There is either a major problem with your utility billing software or you have mass theft occurring and no one cares. I personally have spent hundreds of hours figuring out why my billing wasn't correct. No one in your billing or utility department wants to hear what I have to say. I've been writing for years that there is a problem. Now I bring you proof that there is a problem, and I'm one of the victims. After viewing the documents I provide, one almost has to ask if this is a targeted problem, or is the city so totally inept in managing and collecting money for services? You have two partial copies of two payment summary sheets provided by Palm Coast employees, 1 year apart. You will notice that on June 11, 2013, one payment is listed as $18.77. Yet on 2016, it appears as $15.96 on another statement. $2.81 times the number of utility accounts can be substantial. I don't have city water or sewer service, so the billing is only trash, city-imposed late fees, and court costs. The second sheet shows you an even more troubling problem. Where did the deposits go? You have hundreds of dollars of deposits that aren't being shown or credited, and there are 3 additional checks I haven't been able to verify if were cashed. Not only is my balance woefully incorrect, the problem had other ramifications. On the online printout, you will see a statement, no payments. Relying on that information, I was denied water and sewer service from my new home. Stormwater rendered my own home uninhabitable. The city stated they don't provide stormwater service, yet I couldn't get a decent place to live because I hadn't paid for stormwater. I threatened to put in an outhouse in my yard and dig a well out of total frustration. Counter people are great, but they don't have authority to deal with this, and no one with authority would respond, except to say, pay your balance, which is wrong. I found 5 more problems costing the city money, but the city has a CPA and accountant, and I only have 3 minutes to try to get someone to listen. Try coming up with some of the same balance totals on the sheets that I've provided. It's their job to figure out what's happening to the utility bill. More people need to start doing the math on their utility bill and not trust the corrupted system. You can't tell much from the billing statements as they're issued. Why do the late fees not show up on the bill as a fee charge? Bet most people have no idea that they're being charged fees that do not show up on their billing. In 2013, I asked the council what was going to be done about the late fees being incurred by those of us waiting for non-stormwater property determinations. How much longer till someone decides? I'm still waiting for information from my Freedom of Information request about that question. By artificially inflating my balance, you're stealing from me, making it impossible to shed the late payment when I actually have a negative balance. You've denied my request for water, sewer, for housing in the city, and you've filed and threatened me with unwarranted liens. I've done nothing wrong, I don't owe the city money, and there needs to be changes in an open system.
Thank you.
I'm requesting an audit, software systems to correct the problem, and someone to look over into this.
Thank you very much.
You know, I find it interesting that you gave time to someone else for 2 minutes, but I'm bringing to you the possibility of millions of dollars.
Ma'am, I'm not going to argue with you back
No,
and forth.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm
saying that
just
that gentleman
stating.
requested it in advance, and we have...
My error. I apologize.
That's okay.
Smile, it's almost over. Carol Pizzuto of Faraday Lane. I sustained damage at my house from the hurricane. I lost my seawall. I immediately put a claim into my insurance company, which was denied as they do not insure seawalls. Okay, I applied to FEMA. They sent an inspector, and a week later they sent another inspector. And both could not believe the damage and said it was a dangerous situation. They were reporting as such. 1 week later, I got a letter of denial saying that they don't consider seawalls as part of their situation and I should apply to SBA. Okay, I applied to SBA. They reviewed all my credit items and my credit report and so on and so forth, and they called me and said they were apprehensive about my ability to repay the loan. They really didn't lend money for seawalls. I told them, I was an active cancer patient, and my bills rivaled the national debt to China. But I told them that, and I asked them if they found anything in my credit report that anything was late, or I missed a payment, or anything. I wasn't asking for a grant, I was asking for a loan. And the guy said, no, the credit report was perfect. But, I said, did they ever worry when they gave money to Haiti or the Philippines or all the other places about getting it back? And he said those federal funds were to disaster areas that were different. So much for being an American. I called FEMA back, and they told me to call 211, the state. I called the state. They told me to come to the city, where I am now. They said canals are public areas and should be treated the same as streets, and my city should be applying for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which they sent me a copy here, from FEMA for those items. I am not alone, and they said I wasn't alone. There were people from Palm Coast who were applying for them for the same problem. I have people next to me that all have the same problem. So, if we did as FEMA directed, I'd like to know if the city actually applied for the mitigation grant program for these kind of items. I am here, and like I said, I'm not alone. There's a lot of us out there, and I need you to help me because it's like a lot of money, and I don't have it to spend. I'm losing land every day. The water is going in, the land goes into the canal. Does that mean I pay less taxes because I got less land? No. Okay, but if you would please consider that and appoint someone as chair for this mitigation program for these kind of things from one of your council people to get the funds from FEMA that they said we could possibly get.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other member from the public wish to make public comment?
Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. My family and I attended the tree lighting ceremony last week, and in the past, it's always been like spectacular, like wow. And I was kind of embarrassed because, unfortunately, Mayor Holland tried to use the PA system, and it didn't work. So what did they do? They moved it back behind the switch, and that was even worse because not only couldn't you hear her, you couldn't see her. And so maybe between now and next Christmas, we can get together with the Public Works Department or the Fire Department. I'm quite sure they can provide more lighting and better sound so that the mayor can properly have her opening comments, because there was probably a lot more people there because they wanted to welcome the new mayor for the holiday season. My second comment is the new traffic signal that is now on Old Kings Road and Town Center. Is that a temporary light or is that a permanent light? Because in the beginning when they put it up, they finally said that it was going to be a temporary light. And if it was going to be a temporary light, it was going to be $225,000, but the city was only going to be able to recoup approximately a third of it, if that much. So I'd like to find out, because the light is really a good light, but I need to know if it's going to be a temporary light or if it's a permanent light. And if it's going to be a permanent light, how much more is that going to cost? Because if it's going to cost more money, we should just leave the light that's there because it's working. And my final comment is, and I may be incorrect on this, I've been informed that the land that's on the west side of US 1, just north of Palm Coast Parkway, I call it the farms because the cows are out there. I understand that that land is owned by Palm Coast Holding. And a few years back, I don't know how many years, it was before I got here, they were paying close to $40,000 in taxes for that land. And somehow or another, some weaving and bobbing was done, and they now only pay less than $2,000. Now, that's $32,000 that the city's losing because somebody back then shifted some things, so they went from $40,000 down to less than $2,000. So that's $32,000. So if you take that $32,000 that we could be recouping and you do that for 3 years, he's got his $100,000 for his DPW building.
Thank
Just
you.
wants to give Nestor money.
We can keep the golf course.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Three things. With our new commissioners here, and we also have new city council members, and the new county commissioners, I'm hoping that some can, once in a while, join them in county commission meetings, and we could have a little better, not that we didn't have, but a little better cooperation between the two bodies. I will bring that up to them. They have new commissioners, and hopefully they can attend some of ours, and we work things out a lot easier. One other thing I had brought up before, the exit ramp, 289 North on I-95 getting off at Palm Coast Parkway, does not have signs that, as you look down it, say wrong way. FDOT and Florida have been looking at wrong way drivers and a lot of wrong way driving accidents, which has been on the news a lot. I called FDOT a week ago Thursday. The following morning, Friday morning, a TME Corporation person called me and said they handle it for DOT. They would look into it. That afternoon, they called me back. A man was on the spot, on the job, said, you reported this? I said, yes, there's no wrong way signs on the exit ramp north, but they are on southbound exit off ramp. They are there that say wrong way. And he said, Florida said they're not required on the northbound exit. Now, they're kind of mirror images, so why would they be required on the southbound exit but not on the northbound exit? I'm just asking for a matter of safety. I don't think we've had a wrong way accident there. Maybe the city can urge FDOT to put up wrong way signs. I don't think the cost would be minimal and would help everything. They do have a do not enter sign right on the corner, 12 feet high, but it's behind a pole. So if you're turning, you aren't going to see that. But I don't see any reason not to have that. Another thing is the intersection of Market Avenue and Belterre and Eastwood. My wife was there and 2 cars behind, a truck that pulled out of Eastwood and T-boned the car, a woman who was taken to the hospital there. My next door neighbor was involved in an accident at the same intersection, and another neighbor witnessed an accident at the same intersection. This all within a week and a half. Possibly Commander Carmen could look into that intersection. I brought this up about a year ago. It's a dangerous intersection. I'm sure we're not going to put a light up, but I'm wondering if we could do something like on Cypress Point where they have the car wash, you're putting kind of like left turn only, but it seems people cutting across going from Market, turning southbound on Belterre, and people coming out of Eastwood going northbound on Belterre is causing a lot of accidents, injuries, and everything else. So I'm just wondering if we could look into that and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and my wife loves that wildlife coming, so.
Any other member from the public wish to make comment? If not, we'll close public comment, and we'll take issue by issue. There are many, so the gentleman that left, the cyclist, about the traffic light, Mr. Landon, if you want to address that.
I've addressed it with him before. He doesn't buy the traffic engineers or even my own personal experiences. The only time all red lights work for the safety of the bicyclist or the pedestrian is if there's no right turn on red. And it's actually better for them to turn right on green than it is turning right on red. And what happens here is everybody looks left, sees that car is stopped there, and then they go. And in the meantime, there's a cyclist in the intersection. It is better when they have a green light, that they're more likely to see the bicyclist. But this is a traffic engineer. I mean, it's like if I have teeth, therefore I can be a dentist, or and have an opinion about it. People have their own opinion about traffic engineers, but this particular case is that, yes, intersections for bicyclists and pedestrians and bicyclists have to be safe, but it is designed as per.
There's only one way. I've been riding bikes in Palm Coast before. There's been paths and all that. I've had bottles thrown at me, all that great stuff. The only thing I found that works, because it does, if the traffic engineer, when the light turned red, if the car shut off, that would work. But they don't. So they're going to go through. I would ride with a whistle in my mouth, and when I'm about to go into an intersection, I blow the whistle and everybody's head turns to me. And that was the only thing. I mean, I got hit by more cars than you could shake a stick at. And until I got that whistle, because they don't stop. They don't stop at stop signs. They don't stop at lights. They don't stop, you know, I don't see anything we can implement that would cause the, you know, like I said, unless we go to the no right on red, and, you know, but then you're going to have a different.
Mr. Nobel, then they'll still turn right on red.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
And, you know, through educational components, educate our residents of the importance of bicycle safety as well, so.
I would like to address a couple other things, though. One of them is, the gentleman is correct, that a couple of items that's interesting about Belterre is that we did a safety study on Belterre that specifically addressed the conflicts between pedestrian / bicyclists and cars. And we have installed different kind of signage there that says, be aware of and yield to them. Our plan is to take that throughout the whole community and start using that as a prototype. So the idea of a little better signage to help people be a little more aware of the fact that, hey, you need to be aware of. Plus our TPO, River to Sea TPO, this is a priority of theirs, and they have been looking at educational programs. And as soon as they start putting together that campaign, I think it'd be very beneficial for us to tap into that. But instead of us developing our own campaign, have it be regional, and then us be part of the big push behind it. So that's coming your way too, as far as.
Yeah, I mean, it is important, you know,
Yes.
public safety. So the next,
I have one quick question. Is there any chance that there's audio on some of these intersections, like Colbert and 100? Is there something for that crosswalk there that actually says stop? It's audible?
Or, no, there's not.
Okay.
We don't have it, but there is some audible ones, but they're geared towards the hearing impaired, not the driver.
Okay, I thought it was for blind people.
And I wouldn't hear it over my radio.
It's sorry, it is.
And blind,
You're
yeah,
right.
he meant blind.
Yeah, I mean, I got, I'm sorry.
Really loud.
You're right.
the next speaker spoke of three different issues. The light, I wasn't really.
She's talking about timing of lights, I believe. I can report on the fact that we do have a program right now that we're working on. I saw this week, so it was yesterday, a little test of where we can see the traffic.
Yeah.
And so the timing, and so that program is moving forward. We will take a look at Seminole Woods and State Road 100 and make sure that the sensors are working, because they do go out sometimes. So she said that intersection looked like they might not be working. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay. And the code enforcement, do you want to address those that are in our department being spiteful intentionally?
I can tell you that there's always three sides to each one of these stories, and you heard it tonight, both sides. We aren't doing enough on code enforcement versus we're doing too much. I don't accept that our code officers are being spiteful. I do think that they do get complaints, and sometimes the neighbor doesn't agree with the complaint, but it is against our code. As far as insects and spraying for those, no, that's not something we've ever written anybody up for. So some of this is just public perception and
Well, I didn't understand, I mean, it didn't sound like there was any citation.
No, wait, no, please, ma'am. Public comment is done. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was, you know, but there, one of the things that she brought up was what some of the stuff we've discussed is the nuisance complainer, that
And, and it's
hard to deal with them.
We've made it so that they can't just keep sending
They
out.
can't do it anonymous
electronically
anymore,
and,
yeah.
anonymously, but they can call, and
Right,
and
yeah.
there's other ways of filing those complaints.
Usually, if you have somebody that's calling in, they already know their property is up to code, and they're calling, but they do check the whole street while they're there. I know that because I've called, and I got hit with a code, and they checked everybody on the street. So if they're going down there, usually they'll check everybody, but I still think that with code enforcement, sometimes taking requests, or however you want to say it, people calling in, it's always going to be a problem. And if we just have code enforcement, they're making the rounds, if they catch it, they catch it, and, if everyone's doing their job, we shouldn't need anyone to call in.
Well, and
It's tough.
yeah, the third portion, the corporation's not paying property tax.
She used a term that I think was critical in that, and that's drop lots. Drop lots for us means that they are lots that, for usually environmental reasons, they're not buildable. So it should not matter. Now, the actual property value is determined by the county appraiser. It should not matter who owns it, whether it's a corporation or an individual. But I do know that there has been many arguments that if my property, my lot, just my lot or a series of lots, I can't build on them, it shouldn't be valued at the same amount as a lot that can be built on. I think most people would agree with that. And the fact of it is very few individuals own drop lots. I don't mind telling you kind of history as I understand drop lots, and Mr. Cuff, you may know this better than I do, but they were lots that ITT knew that they'd never be built on. When ITT divested their interest here, one of the things they did was make people who purchased quality property from them that could be developed, whether it was commercial, they made them take some of the less quality and therefore drop lots along with that. And so corporations, lots of times, were the ones that ended up with the drop lots. And so that might be what she's seeing.
Do they have any other usage? Do they have agricultural usage or just plain nothing? So you got this 5 acres that's really prime, but we're going to make you take these other 20 acres that...
That's kind of what would happen. The deer, the turkeys, the critters enjoy them, but...
The ad valorems are, as all of you know, ad valorems are completely based upon what the tax appraiser determines to be the fair market value or the taxable value. Who owns it, other than maybe charity or not-for-profit, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a for-profit corporation versus you or me, it doesn't make any difference to them.
The way the city's involved is we have determined that they are not buildable. So once we determine that, then the property appraiser very likely will appraise them for something different.
And we don't have an idea percentage-wise how many lots are in Palm Coast
There's
that fall under that?
approximately 1,100, all located in the southern end of the community.
The next commenter in regards to the utility, I was looking at this. I mean, we have a new company, Paymentus, correct? Is this different?
Ms. Weaver has a long history, and she's welcome to talk to Mr. Quinn, but I'm not going to try to attempt to address her issues tonight. This is an ongoing issue, and quite frankly, her comments are offensive, and I'm not going to address them.
Okay. Well, I would just ask that if you want to set up a meeting with Mr. Quinn, then please, by all means, do so.
Well, I'd like to know the outcome of that.
We'd be happy to report back to you as far as, but yeah, it's a long history.
Because this is too soon to, I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, I know what I'm looking at, but I don't understand it, so.
There's a lot more to the story.
Right, and that's why I'd like to, if you can,
we can get back.
Another day
we
when
can get
we're
back
not,
to you.
it's not midnight. And
And as far as the next commenter, I list seawalls are going to be an issue in Palm Coast. There's no doubt about it. They're privately owned. They're actually property owned. So it's interesting, well, it's not very interesting. It is interesting that FEMA would say, go back to the city. because there are communities where their seawalls are not privately owned. And so Florida is interesting on how it was developed, but it is going to be an issue. There's no doubt about it. The problem is these are very old. It's old infrastructure, and when one deteriorates, it causes issues to the neighbors. And I joked recently with former Mayor Netz about this very issue by saying, you know, thanks for leaving at a perfect time, because it is going to be an issue that I think this council is going to have to address on how we look at seawalls and how we come up with a strategy to help minimize so much of the cost up front from our property owners, because it affects and impacts a good amount of our residents in our canal lots. So you will hear us talk about that. I know our Code Enforcement Director, Barbara Grossman, has already looked at those as issues. And so I'd be happy to sit down with you if you want to give me your contact information and hear a little bit more about it, to see if there's any avenue that we can help and assist with you immediately.
Well, we got, what about this is an event-triggered disaster, so.
The mayor is 100% right. They are, in this case, are privately owned retaining walls, if you will.
So the program she's speaking of only.
Right. If FEMA said, come see the city or the state, they're thinking the canal, it may be ours, but the actual retaining wall or seawall is privately owned. And Mayor, you know, we can try to assist her in getting the right people and get the right information to the FEMA, because they should be helping with the individual assistance. It would not be under our public assistance. It would be under the individual assistance.
And I do know that our CFO Atwater was in town last week, and he spoke that there's a program that they fall under, that they could help individual property owners.
We can help her try to get her in the right place. We're very frustrated, as everybody is, when you deal with the big monster of FEMA and all the different programs.
Who's are we going to allow to assist her?
Chris Quinn is probably the best one. He's got some financial people that might be able to help, but it will be pointing her in the right direction.
Well, that's okay, yeah. As long, because, you know, I know when you're in this situation, the worst thing is the runaround, you know.
Well, and we'll get, I'll get you with CFO Atwater. They have a whole formula that he talked about last time, so we can assist with that as well. The tree lighting, I know, it was a wonderful event, and attended by many of our residents, and I joke that I don't think anyone really wanted to hear me, but rather they were there to see Santa, so we do need to correct it. I know that our Parks and Rec staff immediately followed up with the fact that they'll make sure that doesn't happen again, that we have the appropriate sound system that can handle any type of speech that's given that night. But it was a really nice event, and as far as better sound and better lighting, yeah, I want to be part of that too. I mean, again, it's a neat thing when you see so many families come out and how exciting it is, and when Santa comes in, it's really cool. So we need to keep making sure we're improving how we do things. The traffic signal, temporary, permanent, is that?
It is definitely temporary. How long temporary is a big question mark, because it's all developer-driven. Not only is a traffic signal temporary, the intersection is temporary. It's ultimately designed to move to the south a little bit. So that's why we didn't put up a Palm Coast mast arm kind of system. And also the Old Kings Road will widen in that area eventually. So the whole intersection is temporary in there, but the signal was badly needed if you ever traveled that way during school time and et cetera.
And as far as Palm Coast Park and agricultural land,
I would be happy to tell you what happened on that one.
I know.
That's why the cows are out there, because as soon as the cows are out there, it becomes agricultural property, and agricultural property has a huge exemption benefit in Florida. So it may be, it's it's owned by a corporation, but they're leasing it to an agricultural interest, and that, as a result, becomes taxed at a lot lower rate.
That is absolutely correct. So,
Why the cows are there.
yeah. Welcome to Florida.
Yes.
289 North.
We can have our traffic engineer take a look. We can't put up any of those signs on the interstate ramps.
That's
But our traffic engineer has a relationship with some FDOT people, and
You'll follow up as far as
Yeah,
those
we'll-
discussions? Okay. And then the intersection Eastwood, Belterre?
Eastwood, Belterre, Market, it's a problem. Pine Grove, Belterre, that's why we did all those, taking a look at it. It's not our highest priority. Actually, Pine Grove, I think, is the name of the residential area that comes out, that we have more problems at that intersection. But it is on our list to take care of, and as traffic in that area develops, we're going to have to do something there. Right now, I would encourage as many people as possible to go out to Central Avenue and come out at the signal, and try to avoid that if you really think it's a problem. It would be very difficult to make that strictly right in and right out for Eastwood. They'd have to go all the way down to State Road 100 and do a U-turn at that intersection, which has got its own issues. And so that would not be a good, eventually you're going to have a signal there.
Eventually?
Yep.
Okay. And that actually addresses the public comments. We'll take it to agenda item number E, which is discussion by city council of members not on the agenda. Start with Councilman Cuff.
Just one brief comment on the sound system. If you're looking for the glass is half full side of that problem, the public didn't get to hear some of our city council members singing Santa Claus is coming to town, at least not as loudly as they would have if the microphone had been working. So.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Nofio.
I have one thing, Ms. Mayor. In the last county commission meeting, they brought up an interesting issue, and that was they created a moratorium on marijuana dispensaries. And I'm not bringing it up because they did, and so but I thought about it, and I said, the state is in the process of developing the regulations. And they said something about a few months before that comes up. So I think, I'd like to get the opinion of the council. I think it would be prudent for us to follow suit and to have a moratorium and to prevent any dispensaries opening just yet until the regulations are defined and we don't have anyone grandfathered in quite. So it's open to you. No, I scared them. Yeah.
Let me, a lot of cities and counties are doing this because, having the constitutional amendment makes it constitutionally legal, but now the state legislature has to figure out exactly what does that mean and what exactly is the definition, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions. So then our job right now would be to figure out, okay, is this a pharmacy? Or is this more like alcohol, or is this more like a pill mill? I mean, there's a variety of things, and until we really know what the rules are that the state are going to put together, it's hard for us to guess. And so locally...
And I can tell you, I spoke with Senator Hudson at length about this the other day because he has the distinct privilege of actually chairing the discussion on how to regulate. And it is complex, and it's not as easy, and so... he's in Tallahassee this week, spending an entire week just sitting down with their staff saying, where do we even begin with this very complex process as far as not only regulation, but what that means to local communities, because it will have an impact. I can remember being on the county commission and the issue of adult entertainment facilities came up. And it was, where is the best place to put them in your community, where it has the least impact in a where it's not consistent. We talked a lot about consistency tonight with developments and what works in neighborhoods and what doesn't. So, and we found out very quickly that you can't just go in and say, no, you can't tell us not to be there, because if it's private company and business and everything else. So I'm in favor with moving forward with that until I think we can get a better understanding of what not only that would look like from a regulation standpoint, but really from an allowance in our communities and how that's going to dictate where those businesses or entities are going to be located.
Would we approach that the same as we did the bottle clubs?
Yep. Yes. So, just for you that may not know, what we did is, as soon as we realized that there may be an interest to bring a bottle club into Palm Coast, we put a temporary moratorium on them until we could start looking at regulating them or in this case, preventing them.
What's a bottle club?
Bottle club is when you bring your own bottle.
Oh, BYOB.
And they provide you mixers and they get around the liquor laws, so they're open all night long and some other interesting issues. So we've also done the same thing when pill mills became a problem. We're coming up from South Florida and looking for places where they could just have major problems that come along with those here in Palm Coast. Kind of the steps would be this is something that any halfway decent city attorney would just pull this right out of his computer and off and running. No, seriously, this is pretty standard, and we're doing it all over the state. So our city attorney, I know he's very prepared to be able to do this because he's done it for other clients. And if you want to do this tonight, then we would immediately put it on the agenda for your next business meeting. And it would be for 6 months. In the meantime, what I'd ask for tonight is you actually take a formal motion to declare this legislation in process, which avoids someone coming in tomorrow and saying, oh, before they get the ordinance adopted, we want to sneak in. And that would be helpful, and you've done that before. You did that with the bottle clubs too. And that's something that by law you can do so that we can say no until City Council decides what the local law is going to be. We're not going to accept any applications.
So does any council member object to that?
Well, somebody has to make the motion.
Well,
I could prepare the language for the motion if it would be helpful. This would be a motion to recognize and confirm legislation in progress regarding the establishment of medical marijuana treatment centers in Palm Coast and establishing a moratorium on the establishment and operation of medical marijuana treatment centers in the city of Palm Coast with an effective date being today.
I told you he was prepared.
I just say
Motion?
a motion to what Bill said. So moved.
Now, what this does is it recognizes legislation in progress.
Right.
What you'll see is a formal ordinance adopting a 6-month moratorium that will come, as your city manager indicated, at the next business meeting. But because that takes 2 readings and the effective date of that would be upon the passage at the second reading, this protects the city, at least in the interim. And I think it's important for the public to understand that while this passed overwhelmingly in November, the effective date is in January. It's January 3rd, 2017. What this does tonight, if your motion passes, it makes it crystal clear that in the city of Palm Coast, at least, we're not going to be having these establishments opening until we know exactly what they're going to look like and what they're going to be.
Perfect.
There was a motion and a second. Called to question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously.
That's all I have, Ms. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Clufus?
Yes. I just think we should be very careful comparing the medical marijuana dispensaries to pill mills and bottle clubs, because they're very much separate things.
I would totally agree, but we're going to have to compare. We don't have medical marijuana in our code, so then we have to go down the list and figure out, okay, which one is it? Unless you pass.
We can't allow pill mills. I mean, they're not.
Okay, good. And then that's why the ordinance needs to reflect the difference. Yes. I was just trying to say that. That's why it's so difficult for us, because it doesn't match any of those. So we're in agreement.
I think it's important to understand that the term that that you find in these moratoriums and that I used in this motion is a term that is defined and used specifically in the amendment as a medical marijuana treatment center, which an entity that acquires, cultivates, possesses, processes, transfers, it does a lot of things. So it's, people think, well, it's just a place where you're going to go and you're going to buy some medical marijuana. As it's defined in this constitutional amendment, it's more than that. And I think that's why the city manager is indicating that, and the mayor, you've indicated that it's a lot for the state to implement some regulations, because it is more than just a storefront selling this product. It's as defined and as the voters approved, it can be something that's a lot more than we would anticipate.
And I have nothing as well, so we will move forward with city attorney of matters not on the agenda.
You have worn me out.
I'm okay with that. Discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
I am very pleased to announce that we have concluded our storm debris pickup efforts. We're not finished by any stretch. We have to dispose of all the debris that was vegetative debris that we've collected. We still have repairs that were underway. In fact, but our emergency is obviously passed a few weeks ago. We are recently have discovered some damage to our sewer treatment plant, and I sent a memo to City Council. And what that was is a gearbox that normally you don't purchase unless you order it, and then it's 6 to 8 weeks. And we were already down one gearbox. That's one of the reasons why we had the treatment plant under repairs at the time. The utility said being down two is really hurting our plant. And there was two in, I think, in North Carolina, some places up east of here. So I've authorized under emergency purchase to have those be delivered, and they should be here this week. So I'm just, what our purchasing policy says, I need to announce that publicly to you. It really fits under the storm. It will come under our storm damage, but because of the state of emergency is gone, I'm going through this step. But once again, the really good news is that we pretty well have the community cleaned up, and a lot of effort. I can't say enough about Public Works, and not just Public Works, but everybody. I mean, our inspectors and everybody really chipped in, you just name it. Next is a couple of really positive things. One of them is, Mayor, you attended a little luncheon ceremony at Northeast Regional Planning Council, or Council, where we were awarded a Excellence in Education for our CHIRP, and CHIRP stands for Children Helping in Environmental Resources, or it's a green program. It's one of those that we've coordinated with the schools, and they come out, and our professional staff and some other professionals in the area talk to them about water and where it comes from and the importance of keeping it clean and critters and a lot of other things. And we were recently, once again, recognized regionally for a program that really has been going on some time. And I just thought that was another example of our excellent staff and programs. Lastly is our next holiday event is this coming weekend. It's Saturday. It's our holiday event at Central Park, and then the Starlight Parade. The activities will start at 4 p.m. here at Central Park, and then the parade is scheduled to start at 7 p.m. So hopefully you all can come on out for that. And Mayor, with that, I have nothing else to add for tonight. So.
Vice Mayor, did you motion?
Motion to adjourn.
There you go.